Smythe, roll call, please.
Sorry, Mr. Gartz,
Here.
Mr. Hall,
I'm here.
Mr. Krupa,
I'm here.
Ms. Mangan,
Here.
Mr. Nasser,
Here.
Mr. Sanfilippo,
Here.
Ms. Stites,
Here.
Mr. Wondrak,
Who's there?
Mr. Wondrak, spacebar. I see you. And Mr. Anisio.
Here. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will move on to number 7 on our agenda. Dr. Handerhan, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adonisio. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to be sharing the district's instructional framework that we will use to really detail and flesh out our plan as we work out all the details. So with that, I'd like to get started because I have an awful lot of information that I would like to share with you. On Friday, June 26th, the New Jersey Department of Education released the Road Back, Restart and Recovery Plan for Education. This document declares that absent a shift in the public health data, school buildings will be open in some capacity for in-person instruction and operations in the fall. The reopening of our schools will include necessary limitations to protect the health and safety of our students and staff. That said, the intent of tonight's presentation is to communicate a district-wide school reopening plan under current health conditions. And I would like to underscore current health conditions. The NJDOE has asked school districts to communicate these plans to community members at least 30 days before the start of school. A lot can happen in 30 days in the context of a pandemic. Because of this stark reality, the Wall Township Public School reopening instructional framework is deliberately fluid as it is constructed as a phase-in approach. In the NJDOE's document, school districts across New Jersey were charged with assembling a district-wide restart and recovery committee. Wall Township did so and established a restart steering committee. By directive, the restart and recovery committees focus on school district perspectives, while pandemic response teams, another requirement of the NJDOE's Road Back, focus on individual schools, protocols, procedures, and their needs. For example, analysis of transportation schedules or the decision to wear face coverings would be a function of the district restart and recovery committee. A school district's pandemic response team would be concerned with decisions such as the coordination plan of students being dropped off in the morning and picked up in the afternoon. Whether or not the traffic in a hallway or a stairwell can be designated as a one-way hallway, or the length of an academic period. These are the types of things that a pandemic response team needs to work on, and they all require building-specific detailing and planning. These decisions must be made at the district level. A one-size-fits-all approach communicated to each school by the school district is not effective, and it's not practical. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of these committees for their time, their efforts, and their contributions. But their work is certainly not finished. These committees will remain active through the school reopening and until this health crisis is no longer dominating the state's educational landscape. Okay, let's get the slides up.
Mr. Clayton, would you please allow me screen sharing rights?
Dr. Hanrahan, I just,
Yes,
really quick, I just
of course.
want to make everybody aware that we are aware that our Zoom room is filled right now. And what we will do as we answer as we take the public comment, once that person's done, we will have that person leave the room, so it'll open up space for anybody else that wants to come in. I can tell you our technology department right now is trying to see how they can make the room larger, but if it doesn't happen, we will go that route. So right now, if there's anybody in the room that does not plan on asking questions, if you're just watching it, I would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and you can watch the meeting there, and then free up the room for people that would like to ask questions or make a comment. And if you are one of those people, just please raise your hand. And once we get to the comment portion of the meeting, we will call on you. Back to you, Dr. Handerman.
Okay, thank you so much. The District Restart Committee, as well as district leadership, must continue to use multiple lenses in its planning while never losing sight of health and safety. The medical impact, the academic impact, and family impact weigh heavily on the decision-making process and impacts the area of technology, operations, transportations, and food services. Our plan must speak to minimizing contact and reducing risk of spread. Considering the medical vulnerabilities of students and staff is critical, and establishing district-wide screening policies. Last spring's lockdown taught school districts many things, and there were inevitably takeaways that were often unique to the school districts. There is an undeniable impact on learning, and our framework must try to address academic impact while prioritizing the health of students and of staff. Schools must also monitor the health of students and staff, both physically and emotionally. And it's imperative that we adhere to appropriate social distancing and the use of masks to minimize exposure. We also need to serve as support for students, staff, and of our families' well-being. We need to be sensitive to family challenges, families' needs, and especially what became loud and clear during the surveys is we need to be sensitive to the need for childcare. The proposed plan was not made in a district vacuum. Aside from committee input from the Restart and Recovery and Pandemic Response teams, 2 parent surveys were sent out this summer. Staff surveys were conducted, administrator council meetings were held, and 3 distinct community stakeholder focus groups were facilitated. In addition to these inputs, there was consultation with medical professionals and the Freehold Area Health Department. Each survey afforded the opportunity for those taking the survey to share concerns or priorities. These narratives were all reviewed, and they certainly contributed to the development of this structure. Perhaps the greatest question on everyone's mind is, what will the school day look like? Several models were reviewed, and one parent survey asked an exploratory question: which scheduling model was preferred? There were 2,902 responders to this survey question. And here are the results broken down by level. K5 is blue, 6-8 is red, and 9-12 is orange. The models surveyed were 5 days, all students, full day. 5 days, all students early dismissal. 4 days, all students with 1 virtual day. Another option is the cohort hybrid model, which includes live instruction, asynchronous instruction, and synchronous instruction. And one of the responses that parents were able to fill out is to express that they were not intending to send their students to school in September. Now, when this survey was sent out, we were told that we were not able to offer a virtual only option. An all virtual option was not to be included in the survey. When we were informed that it looked like an all virtual option was going to be available for our families, we sent another survey. And the survey indicated that 18.2% of the surveyed families indicated that they intended on enrolling their children in the district's all virtual option. On Friday, July 24th, the New Jersey Department of Education released guidelines for an all virtual learning option. This district will be working on developing learning plans for an all virtual platform in the coming weeks. It is imperative that families wishing to exercise this all virtual learning option for their children be identified. We need to know the families that want this option. Early next week, all Wall public school families will receive an online questionnaire. Part of this questionnaire will ask families whether their children will attend school or they will choose the all virtual option for their children. In order to plan appropriately for the virtual model, it is critical that we are working from accurate information. Additionally, the anticipated number of families that may commit to an all virtual option, they impact the in-person education and operations such as transportation and food services considerably. I implore Wall families to complete this questionnaire so that we can best prepare for all of Wall's children's learning plans, whether it be an in-person model or virtual. We need real-time information. With respect to transportation, another item that certainly was of interest to us is how many, given the fact that students will be required to wear masks, how many families will be sending their students on the school bus? 53.9% of the Wall families that took this survey indicated that they would be sending their students on the bus. 46.1% indicated that they would not. That has considerable impact on transportation planning. I appreciate everyone contributing to this, but we will be including with the questionnaire about virtual learning, we will also be inquiring about transportation needs, transportation desires, and if you are looking to bring your student each and every day to school, we are going to ask that you complete a transportation waiver so that we can move forward with our planning, so that we can design transportation routes to best address the needs of the students and try to disperse the students as much as we possibly can. As I prepare to present the specific outlines, the specific schemas, the frameworks, I do want to mention that in addition to discussions with health officials and medical personnel, members of this district have been following published transmission trends across the globe, locally and among really looking across different age groups. it became apparent that transmission rates were greater with the older students. The proposed plan for the elementary schools is different than the proposed plan for the secondary schools. All of the plans will require students and staff to wear face coverings unless they are medically unable to do so. And if that is the case, we will be working with the buildings to make sure that we have plexiglass barriers in place and also face shields as appropriate. We will also be adhering to proper social distancing to the greatest extent possible. Plexiglass barriers will be used if the circumstances warrant it. I offer the example of speech language pathology services. By nature of the position, the speech language pathologist needs to work closely with the student. And in that case, there is a variety of PPE that we will be using to meet the needs of that position, but there will also be plexiglass barriers so that students and professionals can accomplish their tasks while being protected. In addition, policy will be developed to address school community notification and containment guidelines. In elementary school, the K-5 population, the goal is, as I mentioned earlier, we sought to create a mechanism that facilitated different phasing in. We did not want to lock ourselves into a 10-week commitment or a commitment up until Thanksgiving. We did not want to do that because of the nature of the changing guidance, the changing health trends. We wanted a plan that would be flexible. Our hope is to have phase 1 last for approximately 4 weeks. That would be ideal. However, transitioning into phase 2 will be heavily dependent on the real-time health trends 4 weeks out. In phase 1, in the elementary schools, all students will be brought back 5 days per week following an early dismissal schedule, and virtual experiences will be integrated. I'm going to take pause right now to discuss a virtual learning component. At any moment, the school districts across New Jersey, they may be directed to close its doors and follow an all virtual model for every student. That may happen. It happened to us last March. One of the the advantages of having some planning time is that you can reflect on what happened in the past, but you can also really hone in on what can we do to make things better. And one of the things that we can do is we can iron out some wrinkles with integrating virtual lessons, integrating different softwares. Because students will be with their teachers, various assignments can be provided in the virtual context, whether it's homework, whether it's a different activity, whether it's a special that's being pushed in virtually. The students still will have support with their teachers either prior or after to discuss the virtual implementation. And that is really important because it was important to all those on the committees in planning to keep a virtual piece so that we can pivot at any time so we can try to make a transition, if it comes, as seamless as possible. Another issue that I would like to really address is providing services. And with the 5 days a week early dismissal, we're providing all of our special education courses, all of our special education supports, and that includes live compensatory services. And just looking through some of the past feedback, some of the focus groups that we worked with, this is key. These services need to be live, and this schedule affords the opportunity to provide that. On the early dismissal schedule, there is no lunch period. However, plans are being developed, and I'm going to discuss this a little bit here. We recognize that a half-day elementary program is problematic to parents. I'm a parent. I would have personally found this very challenging. The district is sensitive to that. The parent surveys spoke to needing support in the areas of childcare. This was a major theme with respect to the stakeholders groups. And we're working to develop a wraparound program to mesh with this particular, with this schedule, the 5 days early dismissal schedule. And we also are working with community-based care settings and centers so that we can provide options for families. Especially, we're spanning a K-5 grade span in the elementary schools, so we want to provide options that best fit families' needs, best fit their children's needs, but also remain flexible so that families aren't locked in to, sign up for 3 months type of a thing and be committed to that for their child care. We want to be responsive. And if students are choosing and families are choosing these wraparound options or community-based care settings, we want to be able to provide the option to choose to have the school provide the meal because we would be the transition point. And also students receiving free and reduced lunch would also be provided for. Phase 2, if everything is moving smoothly after 4 weeks, and we have the green light with respect to the health data trends in consultation with health department officials, our goal is to move into a full-time schedule, provided we have the proper protections, specifically the PPE needed, that we can create the social distancing. Masks will certainly still be a part of the equation, I'm sure, 4 weeks into the school year. However, I do want to stress that moving into phase 2 is heavily dependent on the data at the time. All districts have been charged with really looking into the future in creating our plans for the reopening of school. And as I said in my opening statements, a lot can happen in 30 days, even more can happen in 60 days with respect to pandemic management. So this is an ideal situation. And I want to stress that this plan has to remain fluid so that we can provide the safest environment as possible. And we are working very hard to provide families with options to help them out during our ideal start with the 5 days early dismissal schedule. In secondary, and the secondary, it spans from grades 6 through 12. So we're talking about Wall Intermediate School and Wall High School. Again, we are hoping that it's a 4-week phase-in. Again, and I'll say it again, it's dependent on health trends at the time. At the secondary level, we're proposing a hybrid cohort model. And this hybrid cohort model still maintains all of the services, the guidance, the functions of a guidance office, the functions of a child study team, and any specialized programming that is required for students with special needs. What is meant by a hybrid cohort model? Students in each school will be divided into two groups. For the sake of explanation, we're going to label one group the red cohort, the second the blue cohort. In phase one, students will have 2 live in-person days, 1 virtual synchronous days. That means the teacher is live and all students are tuned in. And 2 asynchronous days. That means that there is at least 4 hours of educational programming for the students to be completed at the students' and the family's schedule. And in this model, in phase one, students will follow an early dismissal schedule and lunch will not be served. What does this look like? Again, this is phase one, which we're hoping lasts for 4 weeks. Again, it's health dependent. This is the cohort model, the cohort hybrid model. On Monday, the red cohort would attend school. That's live instruction. On Monday, the blue cohort will be working asynchronously from home. They will be completing their assignments that are provided to them at home. So on Mondays, the red cohort will report to the schoolhouse, to the school building. On Tuesday, the blue cohort would report to the school building. And the red cohort would be completing their assignments and their educational responsibilities asynchronously at home. On Wednesday, it is a virtual day. It is synchronous. That means the teacher is leading the lessons in real time, following a schedule with all of the students. So the students in the red group, the red cohort, the blue cohort are all in class virtually together on Wednesday. On Thursday, the red cohort would report to the schoolhouse, blue working asynchronously from home, blue on Friday will report to the schoolhouse, and red will be working asynchronously from home. I would like to stress that special education students that require a self-contained educational program will attend in person on red and blue days. So students requiring a self-contained special education program will be attending live instruction on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 4 days per week. And I would also like to add, there will be a virtual component for those programs as well on Wednesday. For phase two. Now, phase two, again, it's dependent on the health trends at the time. We're hoping that phase one went swimmingly, 4 weeks, and the data looks good, and we're looking to we're looking to transition into phase two. What does phase two look like? Phase two is going to look like one of two models. And much of this decision is going to be based on health trends. And it's also going to be influenced by faculty, administration, and really feedback from families, feedback from students. These are the secondary students, and you know, they are very comfortable sharing their thoughts with adults, and I certainly hope that I will be one of the adults the students will be sharing their thoughts with. But the goal is to offer to select one of the following two models, and that is continue with a hybrid red and blue cohort, just like I described, but instead of an early dismissal, to move to a full day. So that would also include lunch. So we're looking forward to possibly the next step being a full day for a hybrid red-blue cohort. Another option is all students will report for 4 days live instruction in person, 1 virtual day, and the week will follow, each day will follow an early dismissal schedule. And again, there are health data will be weighing heavily in making this decision, but also feedback from all of the stakeholders as we move forward into phase 2. At phase 3, at this point, I believe it's premature to even really nail down what phase 3 would look like, largely because phase 2 is going to be informed by lessons learned from phase 1 and also health data. So phase 3 in the ideal world would be 90 days out. Our goal, and our goal is to provide school to be back full time. That is the goal. Whether it's possible or not, we don't know at this time. But as an educator, we want to provide a full, robust education for our students, and we are certainly hoping to do so as soon as possible. I do want to stress that the plan presented this evening, it's a template and it's a strategy. There is quite a bit more to do at the district level and also at the building level. But in order to dig in to really the depths and to really work on the details, the deep details, we need to have an instructional structure in place so that we can work on the finer details. And this is especially true for the pandemic response teams. It's critical for them because there's so many decisions that need to be based, there's so many decisions that need to be made that are based on the structure of the day and what that's going to look like. So it's critical that we can move forward so that we can provide really a detailed, robust plan so that we can not only provide it to the executive county office, which is an extension of the NJDOE, but we can also share it with the community. And this more detailed plan will be posted on the district's website no later than August 7th. So when we have an instructional model that we can move forward with, we can get to the nitty-gritty of the plan and pinpoint the plan so that we can submit it and so that we can share it with the community and post it on the website. And again, we are looking to post this no later than August 7th to the website. I will say that in these plans speak to detail, and some of these areas of detail will include certainly our district screening policy, which the NJDOE's road back is requiring that we have a policy for district health screening. We also have to really pinpoint processes for notification of COVID-19 exposure and containment guidelines. And these need to be not only communicated administratively, but they need to be shared with with the public. We need to share these with the families so that they know the mechanism on how this information will be communicated. We also need to detail transportation logistics. We know that we're going to be requiring students wear face coverings, wear masks. So what we need to do is we need that real-time data that I mentioned with respect to families opting for that all virtual component, or families that are sending their kids to school for in-person instruction or participating in the cohort hybrid model, but are choosing not to send their students. This is important information that we need so that we can create the most responsible, fiscally and responsible in terms of safety for our students, and that we can really communicate expectations to our drivers. It's critical, and it's critical that the message is clear and the message comes from the top. We also need to, in the detail plan, updated cleaning protocols. I would like to mention that the district is currently assessing, and we will be addressing custodial staffing needs. The custodial staff is a major player in all of our plans, and it's imperative that there's strong communication between every aspect of this district. The impact on food services, technological demands, what kind of demands are needed. We're moving forward with these models. We're hoping to truly enhance our virtual instruction, support our teaching staff, and provide as much professional development as possible so that all of us can grow as virtual educators. Last spring, to say we were catapulted into the virtual environment as a platform, I think is an understatement. And I applaud the professionals in this district because, I was not in this district, but I was a building principal, and the challenges that the school districts had to face, flipping the switch in a weekend's notice really is remarkable. And I applaud all of the efforts in every department of the school district, because this was not easy work. But we've learned lessons, and we want to refine, and we want to polish our pedagogy. We want to set up we want to set up a robust counseling program, and we're able to provide more options for students. We do not want them to be pulled out of their in-person classes, but the asynchronous design provides a lot more opportunity and flexibility for students to schedule appointments with different counseling staff, members of the child study team, and different personnel throughout the district and in their building. It's really important for our students to reconnect with returning to the school building, and we want to support them as much as we possibly can. It was a difficult and abrupt transition last March, so we want to really adhere to the needs of the students, but we also want to adhere to the needs of the staff, and that is critical to me, and it's the lens that I use. I would like to reiterate that these plans are rooted in best safety practices for the health and safety of our students and for our staff. And that's a responsibility that I do not take lightly. And there is not a right answer. There is not a gold standard to to building a reopening plan. It's very custom. We're required to follow the guidance in the document that the NJDOE released in late June. We're beholden to some of the mandates in there. And this is something that is truly a collaborative work. It's a collaborative work because every department in the school district is impacted by these proposed instructional frameworks. And, you know, it is critical that voices are heard. I welcome the opportunity for public comment tonight, because again, if we have the framework in place, we can move forward and we can truly absorb, you know, we can absorb some of the feedback. And this is an opportunity for people to share their thoughts. The public comment is an opportunity for the public to share their thoughts. And I welcome that. And ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time. I realize that this was a rather long presentation, but given the topic is incredibly important to every single person in this community. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Handerhan. Do any board members have any questions at this time?
Yeah, I guess I could start, Ralph.
Okay. Sure.
I just want to make sure that, you know, the public, I guess, understands from what we've been told is that tonight what you presented was basically an outline or a framework of an instructional framework of how you see the next school, you know, how school opening. Right now, there are so many specifics that are not ironed out. We're only looking at the big picture, not the individual details. Those details will be forthcoming and what need to be sent to the state by 30 days before, which I guess puts us at like August 7th. So tonight's presentation was really about, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the model that we want to work under. And you know, big tent thing, the more granular details, like you mentioned, there's literally 1,000 different things to think about that we're not really, you know, approving or disapproving that tonight. We're talking about generally the big tent. So I just want to make sure that people understand that won't be until August. And again, you can correct me, August 7th, 8th, something like that.
Yes, that is 100% correct, Mr. Hall. It is critical that we have an actual structure, because so many items of that plan that you mentioned, the granular, is based on the instructional framework for phase 1 reentry. And we need that to move forward with our detailed plan. So absolutely, Big Tent is a great way. It's a great analogy, because that essentially it is. Our professionals in the schools, those members of the pandemic response team, they will be taking the information, after and really drilling down to identify what they need and to start making decisions that do need to appear in that document that will be posted August 7th.
President.
Go ahead, Mr. Krupa.
Thank you. First, I want to acknowledge all the work that you have done, Dr. Gleason, Dr. Handerhan, everybody. It's been a almost insurmountable task. I do want to say, though, that I am very grateful that the virtual option is now on the table, which it wasn't about a week ago. I know a lot of people were distressed about that whole absence of a plan portion, including virtual. And that's still a right of every parent. This is a difficult role to be in for a lot of reasons, but it's the role that we're here to do. And I just want to say thank you, and that my personal vote is not indicative of any disrespect or lack of confidence in you as a group of administrators and a community. I don't believe that we should be opening schools. That's just my opinion. And unpopular, popular. I just wanted to say that before we actually do anything further tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Krupa. I just want to thank you for your candor, and I would like to echo your appreciation for the all virtual option. I'm grateful that that is an option for our families, and I will take this as an opportunity to, if you are contemplating an all virtual option, we're going to be asking early next week. We're going to be asking. So, have those conversations at home. Have those conversations, because it is a very personal decision. As you are aware, and I just want to reiterate it, the school district is charged. We must open per the governor and the NJDOE in the road back guidelines. We are required to open the schools for in-person instruction in some form. It is not dictated to us, but we are required to open the buildings. So that's why, in particular, I'm very grateful that parents are afforded that opportunity, because this is a big decision, and I can't recall an item that has dominated the educational landscape. And when I speak to my colleagues, this is all we're talking about. This is all we're talking about. And this is a very, very big decision. These are big decisions for school districts, but they are also incredibly big conversations for families to have, and to have an honest dialogue. And I invite the families to start having those dialogues. So, Mr. Krupa, I absolutely appreciate your feedback, and I too am grateful that that option is available.
Ms. Megan?
I would like to personally commend our district administration for their dedication and flexibility during this process of developing the instructional framework for the school reopening. I thank all the parents who have contributed to the process, whether it be through the focus groups or through emails or the vast participation in our Board of Ed meetings. I truly value your input and participation to do what's best for our children. I can speak to that as a mother of 3 young children, as well as a teacher and a Board of Ed member. The amount of participation speaks volumes about how invested our community is to support our children, with the amount of people logged on to our call tonight. So thank you.
Ms. Megan, I would also like to add the public participation, the parent participation that we had through the parent surveys, and also to the stakeholder focus groups. Dr. Gleason moderated 3 distinct stakeholder focus groups. They were 2 hours each in length, and they were quite a cross section of this community, of parents, of levels of expertise too, from the community members. Some were parents, and I'm happy to say that when you include participation, there's always takeaways. You always learn something, and I know I was able to participate in 2 of them, and I'm incredibly grateful, to hear the dialogue, because when you have people with different ideas that are, communicating them in a respectful way, some really good stuff comes out. People may not agree. They may be on complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but when the dialogue is respectful and, it really, I think there's a better level of understanding. And I think that ultimately, whether it's the schedule or moving forward with something hopefully more based in students and improving their experience and working with teachers and expanding their professional development opportunities. When we get to that stuff, this going through this process, I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for that. And all of those pieces really influenced influenced what we're proposing tonight. So I thank you for that, because this is a public school district, and it's not easy and to craft a plan like this, but we need to work together on this. And I saw some really great stuff happen in the stakeholder group. So I would like to thank Dr. Gleason for moderating it, because it really gave me tremendous insight.
Mr. Sanfilippo.
Real quick, I just wanted to thank everybody as well. There's a lot of people in attendance tonight, and I clicked over on the YouTube, and there was 300 plus over there. So, for a lot of folks who've, been concerned about this might be their first time actually, kind of logging in live and, getting the information, sort of right away, as opposed to either going back afterwards. Look, I think as a school district, we don't have the luxury of operating, outside of what, I would term as very rigid and flippant health guidelines. This is, moving parts all over the place, and we have situations, where we don't have the availability to just ignore stuff and say, hey, we're just going to send kids to, school 5 days a week, and, regardless of, whatever else we have going on. So there was so much thought and so much care and so much time and effort that came into this. And just having, lived through, our last marking period and seeing I have a kid who's in kindergarten. I have another kid who's in 3rd grade. I have a child, my daughter is in 6th grade. I really think it's very commendable for the district to be able to get, our younger, population of K through 5 in there for 5 days. I think that's extremely important in, their early education. I certainly, understand and realize that, our kids that are, 6 through, seniors have a little bit better viability and availability to learn remotely. But with that being said, I think it is extremely important, for us to all realize that this is sort of a starting point. I think it's been said a number of times that, this is our 4-week plan. Hopefully the health guidelines improve and we're able to, get back to, our regular learning that, that we know and love, not only, as parents and as students and as staff members and supervisors and everybody else. It's just an important circumstance for everybody, for the function of the economy and everything else. And in talking with people, obviously this is, an extremely important decision. And I really think that, as a district, we have given it the thought and care that it merits. So I just wanted to thank everybody. And I do support, the foundations and our guidelines that we have going forward. I won't, beat up Andy for having, Andy for having his own thoughts. I certainly have said it in the past that you have 10 people in the room and you got 15 different opinions on things. And that's really, you know, where we're at. We get, with that, I just wanted to thank everybody again.
Mr. Nazar.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to echo a lot of the sentiment. I know this is hard, and to everybody that participated in the public and the administration, just the community in general, you know, fellow board members, you know, this has been an interesting process. I wanted to ask Dr. Handerhan and Dr. Gleason, because the one balancing act, I'm going through this too, so I know what you're all are thinking. The one thing that I have been stuck on and what's kept me up at night in the half day, 5 day a week model versus the hybrid cohort model has been trying to balance out the loss of instructional time and the increasing educational gap that comes with the hybrid cohort model with that loss of instructional time. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what that thought process was like? You know, in one way, we're looking at putting all the kids back into the classroom, which could arguably be have a more short-term health impact, but looking at then the long-term impact, you know, it comes with its pros and cons. And, you know, just on a moral standpoint, I know I've been struggling with, you know, which side of the scale is going to have a little bit more weight to it. So I would love to hear the educator's point of view, especially with regards to the long-term educational impact of these types of models.
Okay. Well, I'll start off, and certainly Dr. Gleason, please feel free to chime in, because we've spent a lot of time together over the last, I guess, the last 12 days. So certainly we've been digging deep into this. But I will say that the overarching thing that we can't forget is that the health, we have to take into consideration the health and safety of our students and of our staff. So with that, we've gathered information from so many places, and I will say that you know, while we were working on this, there were some studies that came out where the transmission rate is greater with the older students, and with the older students, certainly, you know, you can read the newspaper to see that the older students, especially, you know, they were shut out. They were not able to connect with their friends, and you know, I live in a shore community, and you know, there are many adolescents in particular that are, you know, that are spending a lot of time with their friends, and you know, that is all contributing to, you know, to the health trend landscape. A second grader that you know, is not going out independently with their friends, driving in cars, going to the beach by themselves, primarily with their parent. You know, it's different, and these studies are speaking to this. So we understand. I certainly understand that, you know, kids want to be with their peers. They want to be with their peers. And, you know, we wanted to use as much science that was available to us. We spoke with medical professionals who were in line with the recent studies, with their professional expertise, and as well as health department officials. So it is, in my opinion, to create a one-size-fits-all was not in the best interest of our particular students, the elementary school students. With the younger students, it's, you know, there are other challenges. You know, they may need more support from their parents in an asynchronous environment. High school students, for example, you know, many of their assignments, you know, and some have taken online courses, you know, in their private lives. So it's development. There is great thought put in developmentally to the plans that were presented here tonight. Speaking to the academics, because there was certainly there was some loss. I can only speak for my school because you know, it was not the same educational environment that it would have been if they came to school every day like they have in years past. So one thing that I can tell you on how this is right now, this is different. Last spring, teachers were not able to get back to their classrooms with very few exceptions, and they had to go through a lot of red tape to return to the building. That means materials. That means accessing, you know, school-based technology. In this plan, our goal is to create a more rich virtual experience for our students, because teachers will be able to access materials. They'll be working with their colleagues. They'll be, you know, going to be engaging in professional development. All of these things are going to contribute to a richer virtual environment for our students. And I look at it as an investment, quite frankly, because we don't know. I'm hoping that we're not shut down by the governor again. I don't want that to happen. But if we are somewhere through the course of the year, we want that investment in providing the best virtual environment that we can for our students. And with this type of a format, I believe that there's going to be a lot of growth, both in the staff and with the students, on what they're capable of doing, and really the caliber of instruction that will happen when colleagues can start working together again, when they can get return and be in their classrooms. That's a big difference over last spring. Dr. Gleason, did you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Dr. Handerhan. You focused on really the most important points, but I do want to reiterate that we are aware, both as an administrative team, along with the Board of Education, that anything short of a return to full day of instruction, we know that is going to have a deficit on learning and on teaching. We also know that we're coming to September with significant learning deficits that happened as a result of school closure in March. So we have a lot of challenges facing all of us. But when we look through, first and foremost, the lens of health and safety, we take in those challenges and we look at all of the challenges that were presented to us from the school community, again, through the lens of health and safety. And we have to take a cautious approach, but I like to think of it as also a hopeful approach, which is why this will be a phased-in model. What that's going to require while we're in the first 4 weeks of this instructional framework is a deep dive into the curriculum so that we can adjust the curriculum for scope and sequence and to pace the curriculum appropriately, because as several board members have brought up, there is going to be a decrease in instructional time by virtue of all of the models. But because the models also allow for increased professional development and common planning time, the charge of the school administration is to work really deeply on ensuring that we can try to catch up if we return to school fully. I like to say when we return to school fully, because I'm going to look hopefully. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. So I know that this is an emotionally charged topic. It has been difficult and challenging. And as Dr. Handerhan has said, it will be a fluid plan. But we did take into account through the lens of health and safety, all of the challenges of the school community. And we are focusing on what's ahead for all of us right now and what we can do to make this time as engaged and as meaningful and as authentic under the circumstances for all learners.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Dr. Handerhan. All right, at this time, we will open up public comment. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes, and if you could, we'd like it to be addressed towards the school reopening this evening. We will have future meetings in the very near future, but that's what this is about this evening. So let's go here. Ms. Teeger?
Hi, I have a few questions. Hi, everybody. My first question is, what does the virtual, like how are we supposed to be expected to choose a virtual option when they have no idea what it's going to look like right now? Like, what's the plans for a student who wants all virtual? And then I'll just throw out my questions to you, and then my next question is, what specific health trend data are you using to move from phase 1 to 2? My third question is, what is your plan for fall sports? And my last question is supplies. So do you have supplies already? Like, do you have the plexiglass? Do you have cleaning supplies? Do you have approved hand sanitizer? Like, has everything just been ordered, or do you already have it?
That's all you have, Ms. Steger?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If I could just ask you to leave the room and go to the YouTube so we can have room. I have been notified that this room should hold 500 people now. So if there are people trying to get in, you should be able to get in. I guess technology wasn't working correctly. It should be corrected now. But if not, I'm going to ask everybody, once you speak, to leave the room and go to the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Thank you. Sometimes it takes a second for things to come off mute. Ms. Gill?
Yes.
Good evening.
Oh, good evening. Hi. So I'm Sorka Gill. I live on Joseph Court. I actually typed out some questions because I have a lot. And I know you can't get to everything, but if you can answer anything, that would be great. If not.
So, Ms. Gill, if you could you follow up with an email to the superintendent with those questions?
I definitely will.
Okay, because tonight it is more, if you can ask the questions and
Yep.
have a comment, but just because of the number of questions and there's so many unknowns,
Yes.
and to try not to go until 3 o'clock in the morning, we are not going to get into the question and answer this evening.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to just read through some of these questions, and then I know some of them are personal, so you will send an email follow-up. Okay, so I know you guys are trying to make something big happen that has never, ever happened before, and I do appreciate all the effort that goes into planning something like that. But because there is so much change, this is why I have so many questions, and I just want to try to get the right decision for my family, because, you know, we all love our families. So first question, will Wall be offering the August SAT? I know the March one was canceled the day before that it happened. And then since then we've missed May, we've missed June, and the August SAT is very important right now. I know many kids are signed up for it, but I don't know what's going to happen with school with that. How will the decision be made as to who's red and who is blue? Will it be by alphabet, by grade level? What is going to happen to the engineering academy? My daughter will be a senior. They're used to 7 hours of time every 2 weeks without access to the engineering labs. I know their capstone project is going to be massively impacted with that. I just don't know how they're going to be able to do that without being physically present. So that is a concern. Will AP classes still be offered in the district? I don't know if the students are going to be able to do self-paced, asynchronous AP level learning. So that's a question. Since students only get to go to school 2 half-days a week, will one day, be an A day and one day be a B day? If so, that really means that each student only gets a half day of a normal block with their teachers per week. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. As a follow-up to that, are elective classes going to happen, or is the district trying to limit this to like math, science, social studies, English, and state requirements? Like, is gym going to be done during school hours, or are these going to be asynchronous type classes? The big concern that my daughter had was, will every day in school now, when she's there, be just to administer assessments, or is time in school going to be for instruction? Because if just going to school 2 days a week is to test, quiz, cold write, that's just going to be massively stressful. Will there be any synchronous instruction offered, which actually that was answered today. I see Wednesday will be synchronous. I know last year the asynchronous type classes was mostly at the high school level optional to attend if you had questions, and it led her very socially isolated, because when it's optional to attend class for high school students, many of them don't, and she just kind of felt very, very, very alone there. The online option, I know somebody just asked that. Will Wall offer a full course load through EduSeer? I know she did US History 2 through EduSeer last summer, and that worked out very well for her. But I know they also offer AP classes, so maybe that is an option. I don't know if Wall is planning to use the service, or if it's going to be just a state thing where you fulfill your minimal requirements. And then how will the choice whether to do online impact a student's GPA, since normally online classes are not tabulated into their grade point averages? These are important questions for high school students that are looking to move forward for college. And then how will dual enrollment at community college work with this schedule? Because currently she was signed up to dual enroll, and I don't know if it's a half day. Normally she would have been leaving at 10:30. So I don't know how this process is going to work for students if they choose to dual enroll, or if that's even going to be an option. If cases are discovered in school, what will the protocol be for what happens with the rest of the students in school? At what number of cases will the school say, okay, that's it, we have to close? Like, is there a percentage, 5%, 10%, 20%? We have too many cases, we're shutting it down. If a student has a fever, are they out of school for 2 weeks? Do they just stay home for a few days? And then in the past, Wall had a policy that sick days were unexcused. If a kid can't come to school because they're told not to, are they going to be marked unexcused absent? That's definitely a policy that the board's going to want to take a look at. And then currently, are athletes broken into groups of red and blue for practice? If not, is there different criteria for athletes in the school? Because they're interacting with a vast group of peers daily. So I'm just wondering, how that's going to work. And then will the extracurricular senior events be canceled? That's it.
Oh, thank you. Your 5 minutes was up. So
Okay.
if you could just follow up with an email with those two, please.
You got it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for taking my call. First of all, Dr. Handerhan, welcome to Wall.
I'm sorry, could you just state your name?
My name is John Venna. I have 2 children in Old Mill. You made reference this evening to a number of studies that went into consideration here for the decisions that you've made. And I'm hoping that there could be some citation to those studies made available to the community in the days and weeks to come. Certainly, there are a number of studies that I think counteract some of the opinions that the board has put forth tonight and that this plan has put forth tonight. I also think that there were a couple of contradictions this evening. And in speaking with other parents online right now and going back and forth, I think a lot of us have concerns and a lot of us have different opinions. What I think deserves some answers really is, your definition of public transmission trends, for example. and how they were reviewed. I mean, in Florida, just in the last 2 weeks, there was a 35% rise in cases of students under the age of 17. At Kanuku Christian Camp in Missouri, you had 82 children under the age of 13 who contracted this disease in an outdoor environment. You know, 2,287 responses in the survey. What percentage of parents does that represent here in the district? I think this is all information that could have been part of this plan to help us be a little bit more informed as parents and members of the community, because at the end of the day, this really isn't just a school issue, it's a community issue. These teachers, these administrators, all of you work in these buildings, you also frequent our communities, live in our communities, and as adults, we are perhaps, we don't know for sure, more likely to contract this disease. The verdict remains out on whether or not children are highly susceptible. The verdict remains out, although it is coming in more and more daily, that longer neurological issues can become present here. What is going to happen? Why we're calling this a phased approach, but at the youngest level, it's beginning with 5 contiguous days of interaction. And that, I think, is something that's concerning to me. Nothing in these details got down to building specific planning, as you referred to, Dr. Handerhan. For example, what is the status of our building's ventilation systems? These are things that are being taken into consideration in buildings across the world right now. And that is not something that was addressed in any of this. The committees and the stakeholders that were involved in these meetings, I don't know how many parents were involved, but at least 3 people, 2 of whom are very involved parents who, are able to be more involved than others, have told me that in some groups, or that in a couple of groups, 2 parents were representing a school. I hope that's not true. But I do know that I haven't heard from enough parents who were representing the school. And my children and my family are pretty active here in the community. And I would have expected to hear from a parent who was representing the class or their concerns, et cetera, or who was asked to represent their parents, et cetera, or to represent the concern of parents and the schools, et cetera. I saw something tonight about mask breaks. I don't understand where we can be so concerned in some areas and then in others say that mask breaks are going to be something that's considered. I don't know if you've ever seen a gaggle of kindergartners before. I'm going to assume you have, but mask breaks is not something that's going to be easily managed. Just keeping the masks on during the learning process is not going to be something that's easily managed. And quite frankly, we went too deeply into this call tonight before the subject of how cases would be reported to parents came up. I would expect these cases to be reported as quickly, if not quicker, than they are in the local media. When this all started in March, a lot of us were in the dark. Wall was in the dark. It turned out that most of our cases were at Care One and other nursing facilities, but it was still in the community. And for a long time, this misinformation kept people scared. And there are people scared now. There are people scared of sending their children to school 5 days a week. There are people scared of sending their children to school at all. And it's for a number of issues. I'm not
Mr.
sure.
Bennett,
Yes.
I'm sorry, you're over 5 minutes now. Public comments 5 minutes. And
I appreciate that. Thank you.
thank you. And again, if you have any questions, please, you can send them into the superintendent.
I've tried. Thank you.
Okay, have a good evening. All right, I am trying to let Ms. Rosselli speak, but it's not letting her because she's using an older version of Zoom. So I am going to try this. Ms. Rosselli? Let's try on mute. Mr. Selly? You're a little choppy. You're choppy, I'm sorry. I can't hear you, you're frozen. Nope, still choppy.
Oh boy. Can you hear me at all?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay, maybe I'll call in.
Yeah, try calling in because we
Can
can't
you hear me now?
Nope,
I'm sorry. Can you hear me say I'm sorry?
I did. It was clear, but then it goes choppy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nope.
Okay, so I should just call?
Oh, wait, now you're working.
Okay. Thanks
All
for
right.
trying and I'll call. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna keep going, okay? Okay. I hope you please stop me if you can't hear me.
Okay, go ahead. We
You
can hear
good? Am I good?
Yep, you sound good.
Am I good?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, my name is Jean Rosselli, and starting my 23rd year teaching kindergarten at Central School, and I love it there. And first, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight regarding the reopening of elementary schools in town. I appreciate the board facilitating this meeting, as I realize it's not even required by the county before submitting your plan. Just a few seconds about me to help you understand my upcoming point. So kindergarten is my passion, if you know me. When law was half day, I remember having 29 kids in the morning and 27 in the afternoon, and that was great, and we made it work. So I'm certainly not afraid of full classes. I tell people that 5-year-olds are my business. You're in insurance, and I'm in 5-year-olds. So I'm deeply, deeply saddened, worried, and disappointed in the K-5 full capacity restart plan. If you were led to believe our surveyors, stakeholders from elementary were on board with this plan, I'm here to tell you that 13% that took that survey agreed this was the best way to start. 13%. Parents that were on the focus meetings told me hybrid model was the common ground and were shocked to hear this was being rolled out. I have a lovely, lovely, huge kindergarten room, and believe me, in the 20 years since I've been in there, since the referendum, I can 100% assure you a 4- and 5-year-old September kindergartner will not sit or socially distance with full capacity, let alone have enough stamina to A, wear a mask for 4 hours, or B, this is the saddest part, not eat until 1:30 when their bus takes them home. I faithfully watched every meeting and fully wrapped my head around the AA virtual BD that Dr. Gleason has been presenting for months. After receiving this plan, many elementary teachers didn't even sleep last night. It has been mass chaos. Central, you know, is an island. We have 85 adults. We have almost 600 children. Even a rock-solid arrow-on-floor in-school movement plan will not work there. So Governor Murphy's emergency order of 25% capacity or 100 people inside the building is something he speaks of often. I heard him say it as recently as yesterday in his press briefing. I believe now, and I understand that doesn't apply to schools. But whether I agree with that or not, isn't that something to consider? With 600 people in my building, does it make sense to me? Does it make sense to you? I need to have it make sense. I can't even go to my town hall in Berea and pay my taxes. I can't even go get a library book. But I'm so nervous to have these children But these adults in the building, you have the ability tonight to help us, but I also included elementary in the hybrid decision you plan for my intermediate school and high school colleagues. I've heard the research with children under 10 not transmitting to adults, but keep in mind 5th graders are 10 and 11, and there's 85 adults. Listen, I want to end with this. Elementary teachers are rule followers. We do what is asked, we do it well, and I feel like with any program, assessment, report card, there's always kinks and then overreactions, and then it settles down. But this, however, in my life, literally my life, I'm just for the same luxury of class sizes as the intermediate and high school. I'd like to end that saying, back in April, I reached out to Dr. Gleason, thanking her for the genuine, decent support for her check-in emails and concern for our well-being. I asked the board to mirror her concern and consider that this is our lives. I personally have met many of you as I sit on the Health and Safety Committee for my school, and I have a lot of respect for you and the thankless job you do for WAL. Thanks again, and I hope I can sleep better tonight. Take care.
Thank you, Ms. Rosselli. Let's go to Russ.
Yes. A lot of people were just texting around saying, when you can't understand the person, you should just really cut them off and tell them to write in. That wasted over 5 minutes. Somebody said she was over 5 minutes. Nobody could understand a word she said. And, when you tell people to actually write in questions, you have to answer them. I have written in questions for the past month now, and I haven't gotten one response. So it's disingenuous to tell Sorka Gill to write her questions in, and then Jonathan the same, and then not reply. You cannot keep doing it. People are losing faith, and I, for one, don't think you should be voting on this tonight, because when you did the survey results, people could have answered the question 5 times. So everybody should be able to take that survey again. It looks like most people are leaning towards the 5-day, and the 18% that want the virtual, that's great. But you have to have these actual numbers to figure how you're going to fit the students in the classroom. Assessing custodial staff and hiring custodial staff are 2 different things. It's almost August, so you're going to have to start hiring people. I've mentioned this for years now about the grant writer. I didn't hear anything about it tonight. There is so much money out there in New Jersey. We cannot waste time. You have got to hire a grant writer. Nurses, we're going to need more nurses. I didn't hear anything about that tonight. Technology. I mean, how did this happen tonight? We couldn't get more than 100 people on the call, or was it by design to hope that people would just hang up and not come back? You have 30 people on a pandemic response team. You paid them almost $30,000. Could you tell me tonight what they actually did? I saw 30 teachers paid. And what did they actually do for the $30,000? I actually did add up. We've spent more money paying 4 prior superintendents, Mark Francisca, Eileen Honahan, Ed Miklas, and Cheryl Dyer. We spent $30,000. And when I went over supplies that we've bought, we've spent less on supplies. Country Clean, we bought $114.92. WB Mason, $9,000. We spent almost half as much on Verizon Wireless. Safety Clean, $466. So if Mr. Smythe can go over, what have you actually bought so far, so people feel safe sending their children to the school? Right now, I don't have a comfort level, but I want my son to go 5 days a week. So you need to go over that tonight. Transportation. We have 3,400 students, and half of them aren't taking transportation. So now you have 1,700 students driving to the schools. You need to go over. Now you have all these extra buses. They should be doing the other routes to the other schools. You need to go over the virtual live instruction. That's what it has to be. I'm focused on my son in the high school, and this is not going to work. For him to come home and do God knows what, because you haven't gone over it, you haven't looked at it, you're trying to work on the plan, is not good enough. It's now July 28th. So I think you should table this tonight, get a quick survey out again tomorrow, set up another meeting. You don't have to do your 48 hours. Come back, answer everybody's questions, because what you've presented tonight, it just really isn't good enough. When I'm looking at Manasquan, St. John Vianney, St. Rose, all these other schools. What else? Yeah, I mean, when I look at Manasquan, their presentation has the times of what the kids are going to be doing, and what you're doing in the facilities, how you're alternating the schedules. They're going 9 period days for 45-minute sessions. What my son is getting in Wall High School, I really have no idea, because I don't really think you have any idea. And Dr. Handerhan came from a great school, so this is the part I really want to say. What happens when the first teacher and parent are sick? Who is recording the data and updating it? How quickly are you getting out to parents? People who are on these pandemic response teams you keep talking about. Where are the summaries? I spent 2.5 hours on a phone call on Friday. I thought we were going to get a summary. I was jotting a million things in the chat sign. Thank you for me being on it, but I'd like to see all the summaries for the 3 groups that were on it. How are you doing virtual? Are you having cameras? I did a John Vianney tour, and they've purchased all the cameras. How many cameras have we bought? I put in purchase orders to Mr. Smythe, nothing came back. Leads me to believe we haven't bought anything. We haven't bought cameras, we haven't bought hand sanitizers, we haven't bought the HV10 filters. If you have, please tell us tonight. These are all important things. We don't have a report on the Central School trailers. We don't know when we
Russ, thank you. Your 5 minutes is up.
So please.
Trying Ms. Connolly, but she's using an older version, so hold on 1 second. Ms. Connolly, try and hold on.
Can you hear me, Mr. Adonisio?
Yes, sorry about that.
I'm sorry too. I didn't realize I had an outdated version. Good evening, everybody. My name is Allison Connolly. I live on Sioux Street in Wall Township. I too want to start by thanking everybody. I have the unique position of not only being an educator, but of also having sat on that dais. So I do understand what many of you are facing right now. And I appreciate the hard work and effort that everybody involved in this process has put into it. I particularly thank Mr. Krupa for his honesty, because when it comes right down to it, I also agree that schools should not be opening come September. That's not a decision that I make rooted in fear, but more out of concern for the fact that whatever plan we have in place, I do not feel secure in the fact knowing that we're going to be able to properly prepare for it. I don't think that schools are going to be able to get the amount of PPE and other things that they need to ensure that their students and staff are safe. And so I appreciate Mr. Krupa his point of view and some other questions and notions that have been raised along that line. I have a lot of questions, but some of them have been raised already, so I'm going to stick to the ones that haven't. What I would like to ask the board, or for Dr. Handerhan, and by the way, welcome to district, Dr. Handerhan, to do is perhaps create a list of asked questions that can be shared on the website, because I think there's many questions being asked tonight that we'd all like to see the responses to. So while individuals may be generating emails, I think there's lots of us out here who would actually like to see the responses. So if it's possible, I would like to see that be done. In random order, I just wanted to ask if the WTEA had their own survey done within their membership that perhaps Ms. Marr may have done, and what those results were, because sometimes surveys done within union leadership promote different results than the ones done by the district for a variety of reasons. I know that was the case in my own district, and I'd be interested to know if the feedback that Ms. Marr received is reflected in the plans that we are seeing generated by the district, especially now in light of what Ms. Rosselli had to say. In addition to that, with the free and reduced lunch, I know we keep saying that those students are going to be accommodated. I want to know what precautions are going to be taken to that those students are not identified as such, that their privacy in receiving their free and reduced lunch is protected, that they're not just handed a box and therefore identified as somebody needing that service, because that's not fair or equitable for those students. I heard a rumor, and I hate to start a sentence that way, but that the 5-day plan at the elementary school is largely contingent on a gamble that a certain number of students are not going to be present because they want the fully remote option. And I want to know if that's true and what happens if those numbers change. Because similar to Mr. Selly, I can't imagine how 5 days at full capacity is actually going to work in an elementary school. I also want to know what's being done to ensure the health and safety of the staff and students. There was no discussion of wellness checks or temperature checks or anything along those lines to ensure that sick students aren't getting on buses or coming into the building and therefore compromising the health and well-being of our staff and students. I also want to know how teachers, particularly at the high school level, are supposed to manage on Wednesdays. If I'm understanding the plan correctly, that means that teachers are going to be having a virtual classroom on Wednesdays that's at full capacity and possibly double the size of what they're used to within their own classrooms when they're in the brick and mortar building. And I wonder what that's going to look like and how teachers are supposed to handle that. I wanted to also know what the purpose of the early dismissal was at the intermediate school and the high school. It's enough that it's 2 days. I don't know why they're 2 shortened days. And then in my own district, one of the things that we're working on is simultaneously creating a robust remote learning plan for the inevitability of having to return to a fully remote environment as should the governor call for it. And I know our teachers really did a fabulous job from March to June, but there were a lot of issues as well. And I want to know what's being done to make sure that the plan come the next go round of a fully distance learning will be robust and efficient for all involved. And that's all I have for you. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conley. Ms. Hanson?
Yes, hi, how are you? I have a daughter entering 3rd grade at Central School. We live on Liberty Lane across from Central School. I first want to just start by saying thank you to everybody on this panel, the Board of Education, Dr. Handerhan, Dr. Gleason. I know this is keeping you up at night as it is our community as well. I do have some concerning questions. You know, it's difficult because I'm an educator myself. So I feel for these teachers, I really do. And some of their questions are questions I have in my own district as well. But the biggest question I have, and I think a lot of parents at the elementary level are wondering is, why are you offering a 5 half-day and not a full day model, but yet you're suggesting wraparound or childcare as an option? So I really would like that answered. And I agree that I think all of these questions that we have need to be put into, you know, on the Board of Ed page, on the wall page, so that we can see all of these responses, not just hearsay around the community. But, you know, I am all for my daughter going back to school 5 full days. I feel extremely confident that she will be safe. So I would like to know, based on that survey, it speaks volumes that people want their children in school. And the people that don't want their children in school, you know, I have no judgment against them. Allow them to do that virtual option. Another question I have is, are the children going to be allowed to wear face shields versus a mask? Because it is going to be very difficult. I do, you know, hear what the teachers are saying. It's going to be very difficult for them to keep masks on all day long. Are children going to be offered a snack and water throughout their day? Because again, difficult for them in a day not to have those things. Are you looking at some outside classes? I know in my district, that was something that was discussed on the Board of Ed meeting this morning, that they are going to welcome outside classes. So is this something the township is looking at, if they're going to offer? Another question is, with teachers and faculty and students, if a student does test positive or a teacher tests positive, is that entire class quarantining for 14 days? I mean, how are we going to be handling this moving forward so that you're not putting this entire community in mass hysteria? Are the teachers going to be wearing masks in the elementary school? And even this can go K through 12, where the students can really see their lips moving and their faces, you know, their expressions. My daughter said to me the other day, well, Mom, how am I going to see the teacher make it, you know, facial expressions when she's reading a story to us? So I think that's something we need to think about as well. I think that something else that should be considered is maybe lessening the minutes for these specials, art, music, library, gym, maybe looking at a model where you're doing that 2 days a week versus 5, so we can really bridge that gap of instruction that has been lost and that will continue to be lost as we enter into September. I think, you know, I agree with looking into the cameras. I think that's a safety concern as well, though, for the children and the teachers in the classroom. I'm not sure how you're thinking about that or discussing that, but I definitely think that needs to be discussed. And how you're going to move forward with these teachers that are afraid. I, again, am an educator. I have reservations as well. So how are you going to address teachers that really don't want to come to the building? And what that is going to look like. So again, I think that all of these questions everybody is posing to the Board of Ed definitely need to be addressed. And I you know, will mimic what Betsy Cross said. I think that you need to wait on this vote until the community sees these responses and we feel comfortable with these responses. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for all your attention. I know this is not easy for any of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. And just so everybody's aware too, we are going to post answers on the website. This was discussed before the meeting this evening. So if you do have questions, you know, they are jotting them down now, but you feel free to also email them in, and just in case something gets missed. Let's see. Miss Vegas?
Hi, thank you. I really just had 2 questions. I wanted to know if Dr. Handerhan mentioned earlier that they were going to ask for answers from the community next week to make their decision about all online learning or in classroom learning. And I was hoping that you weren't going to expect us to have answers about that prior to finding out exactly what the in-school program is going to look like. So I did want to know that. Hopefully, you know, we don't have to make our decisions before we know that information. And also I wanted to know if once a parent makes that decision about how their child is going to learn, whether it's at home or in school, will there be flexibility to change your mind should circumstances change during, you know, well, hopefully circumstances are going to change. But, you know, if things change, can we decide that, well, we want to bring our kids back home again, or yeah, we feel good now to send our kids back into school. So that's all I had.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Harrison?
Hi, I just had
Just
two
your
simple
name
questions.
and your name for the record. I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Megan Harrison, and we live on Elmwood Road in Wall. We are having an incoming freshman. I am also a nurse, so I just have 2 questions. Have you guys implemented any sort of UV lights or HEPA filters into the schools, period? And also, what is your potential screening plan? I know that you don't have one as of yet, but what is the potential screening plan? You have to have at least a fluid one, which I get, but are you adding extra custodial personnel to screen students as they come in? Are you adding extra security personnel to make sure that they have masks on throughout the day? Like, what is the actual plan here? And that was pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You as well. Thank you.
Michelle?
How you doing? My name is Michelle is my wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's on her account. Just want to say thank you to everybody.
Could you just give your name for the record, please?
I'm Baboumian, and I send 3 children to primary school. So I'd like to start out by saying I know this is a very challenging time for all of us, and I appreciate all your efforts that you're doing. I know it's not easy. I work for a large company, and you know, it's very hard with the logistics of it. I understand that. So I had the first thing is, you know, I'm glad to hear that the question and answers are going to be posted. That was one of my concerns. I think that'll answer a lot of questions, people's questions, and it'll make your lives easier as well as the board members. You know, so you don't have to keep repeating the same question. You know, keep repeating the answers to the same question. The last caller was a nurse, and one of my comments is there any plans for temperature checks for the teachers coming in on a daily basis, for the students, custodians, all the workers who enter the building? So I was curious about that. I'm also curious about the buses. How are the buses going to be sanitized? When are they going to be sanitized? How often? So that was also another one of my concerns. And the last comment I would make is obviously life has changed for all of us. And after we get through this pandemic, it's going to be a new world. So my comment is, I hope we're looking long term. You know, even after something like, you know, a drug has been found, something long term, you know, for the children's well-being and safety and education. We shouldn't just not be looking at 4 weeks to 90 days. I think we should look long term as well. Thank you for your time.
Sir, could you just state your name again? It didn't come in.
Oh yeah, my name is Armin Baboumian.
I'm sorry, what was the last name again?
Baboumian.
Could you spell that?
Baboomian. I actually went to school in Livingston, and I'm down. I moved to Wall because it's a great community. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm raising my children here, and I love the community, and everyone's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Hello, my name is Carol Swankoski. I live on Curtis Avenue in West Belmar. I teach music at Old Mill School. I love my job and my students. A very warm welcome to Dr. Hanrahan, and a thank you for your presentation, and for Dr. Gleason and the school committee and all the committees who put so much time into this. I understand most of these questions will be answered by the pandemic response team. These are the questions that keep the teachers of Old Mill up at night. And I agree with Mrs. Rosselli. We did not sleep last night, and there's been many of those nights. There's a lot, so I will send what I cannot finish, and I'll try to be as brief and quick as possible. So again, these are not just mine, but these have been submitted by many on the staff of Old Mill. Will staff and students all be tested prior to reopening to ensure no one is affected and doesn't know it? Will we have an agreement with a testing facility for a reasonable response time? Locally, City MD has 12, even 17-day wait for results. This is going to be very difficult. Will students and staff who have cold or allergy symptoms without a fever be able to come to school? Many children and adults who test positive for COVID do not have a fever. What will happen if a staff member is exposed? 14-day quarantine? Will this be sick time or paid leave? Specials and resource, lab, reading specialists see multiple classes and kids a day. Will they have to quarantine? This came up many times. Appropriate social distancing will not be possible in most classrooms with the model having all of the children in at the same time. Some of our rooms have no windows, or the windows, they don't open. They're not designed to open. Those rooms with windows that do not open also have poor ventilation. Someone said that their office, their space, their teaching space, has no windows and has an induction vent that brings in air from the hallway. Lack of ventilation and air circulation is a concern. I know there was a parent, actually an Old Mill parent, who asked a question about the circulation. I'll probably hit this later, but some of the teaching spaces are actually repurposed storage rooms that we love and that we use, but we have to call them for what they are. Does our ventilation system share air between rooms? That was a big concern. We don't know the answer to that. Will there be some sort of additional filtration system for the HVAC beyond the standard filters that are typically used? Art, music, PE, technology, and Spanish see the entire population of the school in 1 week. These teachers, myself included, were kind of nervous about that. What will we do when there's a shortage of subs? Pulling interventionists or other teachers to cover will increase their risk, especially if they're in different classes each day, similar to a specialist teacher. Plans for substitutes, sharing teaching materials, desk, room, etc. How will we know that they're not sick and that we'll be safe? How will they be tested? There's a question about the students getting snack, but that was covered by a couple parents. Will the teachers be permitted to drink water and coffee? How are we going to handle bathrooms with the children? How will it work when parents initially choose to go with remote learning and then they decide they want to return their children to full time? This increase in class sizes means increased exposure. The students who haven't been part of the setting up of routines and procedures in the beginning that helped create a safer environment, that was a concern. Why do this has sort of been answered, but why do the older students and staff at the middle school and high school have hybrid schedules to reduce exposure and number of students in the building, and the elementary schools are expected to return to full capacity every day? Elementary school students have more difficult time controlling germ spreading behaviors. I have to apologize in advance, but this is going to get gross. Coughing, sneezing, covering mouths, and picking nose. These are all normal elementary behaviors. We love those children, but that's the way they are. If intermediate school and high school needed phased plans to reopen, to fully reopen, why do the elementary schools not have this? This was addressed if the elementary plan is based on the assumption that parents of the elementary students will choose remote learning, so class sizes will be smaller. How much data is there to support this? And all right. What about resource classrooms? They are small rooms. Social distancing is impossible. Students do not remain with their homerooms. I've run out of time, right?
Yes, you are at 5 minutes.
Okay, I tried to go as fast as I could. So I'll send the rest of my list. And please know, I send these, I have such profound respect for the work of each of you. I am also a I live here. My children went through Wall. And so I only have the best of wishes for you. And thank you for letting me take the time.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Dr. Greco?
Hi, good evening. This is Samantha and Dr. Richard Greco. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We just have just a suggestion, and we wholeheartedly appreciate, and we're backing you guys 100% on the plan. We very much appreciate it being in healthcare on the front lines. So we appreciate that and thank you. Our suggestion is, why not turn the cafeteria into classrooms since we're not utilizing it? It's just creating more jobs for better teacher-student ratio. And then that way, you know, we could maybe do full time for the children. So, and there's also like the private schools, they're offering outdoor space under a tent. So that's also another option. So we're just offering suggestions. We really appreciate everything you're doing.
Is that it? That's everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick question, suggestion.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Ms. Holmes?
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Your name for the record, please.
Yep, Marianne Holmes, Grant Street in Wall. Again, like everyone has been saying, I really do appreciate all of the hard work from everyone who has invested their time. I have to tell you, as a parent and a teacher, I'm very happy with the plan. One question I have is if we are opting out of busing in the beginning through the survey that's going to be conducted, in turn, when we go back to school full time, which I believe we will, can you opt back into the busing? So just a something to think about, something that my district had laid out, that it would have to wait till the end of the marking period to reroute and give that time. So that's just one question that I have. But again, thank you so much for your time, and I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
I'm trying Miss Rystrom. Let's see.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
My name is Megan Rystrom. I live on Rambling Hill Court, and I have a daughter who's going into first grade at Allenwood School. I appreciate everyone's time and efforts because I know that this is an undertaking that no one has, ever done before. I'm also an educator myself. So I do have concerns about the health and safety of the teachers and listening to their opinions about how they feel coming into the building and making sure that they're protected. And with that being said, at the elementary level, I'm wondering if we're addressing class sizes at all. Because the way that I heard it this evening is that the class sizes will remain the same. And I just find it difficult, again, being in education myself, how we're going to social distance the students in the classrooms that they're currently in with the numbers that they have. I also think it's important to keep in mind that if we are keeping students in the classroom and they're not allowed to have movement, that the way that education looks is going to be drastically different, and especially at the lower elementary level. Is it still going to be the same quality of education if 6 and 7 year olds have to remain in their desks for 5 to 6 hours a day? I also had questions about having snacks or water in school, even on a half-day schedule, especially when they're little. What the procedures are for temperature scans, as far as if that would happen prior to the students getting on the buses, if they're taking the transportation. So that way, if they did have a temperature, they're not getting on the bus and then exposing all of the students on that bus. I also had the same question about if you opt out of the transportation, if that can change throughout the school year. I also think that it's important to have a survey out to the parents again, now with the new option of going all virtual, so that way the information can be looked at and updated. And I also think it's important that every building in the school district make sure that we know about the school ventilation system, if it's up to code. And I also I'm concerned that if the teachers are to remain in the schools, even if the kids are leaving at half day, if they're held to stay in the building till their contracted time, how much time that gives the custodial staffs to deep clean the buildings every single day to make sure that it's safe for the students and staff the next day.
Got everything?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Hello?
Hi, my name is Krista Turek, and I'm the art teacher at Old Mill Elementary School. I'd like to express my concern with the proposed model of full attendance within the elementary schools in our district. I want to share a more personal point of view as someone who just recovered from COVID-19 myself, along with both of my parents who live with me in a mother-daughter home, ages 65 and 70. They were hospitalized for 6 days following the diagnosis of the virus. Many people have talked about a fever check within schools, but from my family's experience, a fever is not always present with the virus. My parents both had bilateral pneumonia without even realizing it. They were not short of breath, and they did not have fevers at all during the course of their illness. Their x-ray was the only indication that they were sick, other than them being a little bit tired and having a light cough, nothing like the heavy cough that they describe in the media. I myself started COVID-19 simply with congestion, which lasted 2 days, and I felt fine several days after. I never had a fever. Had the other members of my family not shown light symptoms, I would have assumed it was regular allergies and I would have never gotten tested. The dizziness, headaches, and loss of taste of smell didn't set in until a full week after I tested positive. I didn't have any other symptoms of heavy cough or fever as mentioned, meaning if I was working, this was a full week where I could have left everyone else exposed without knowing, not to mention the 3 days I was contagious before I showed symptoms. I teach about 350 students a week as a specialist teacher. If I test positive again with the same symptoms, I will have already exposed the entire school in 1 week before knowing or having any sign of being sick. 4 weeks later, I still have neurological effects such as dizzy spells and tingling in my fingers and toes, even though I now test negative. An ear infection set in at the 14-day mark for me after quarantine, and I was put on antibiotics. With the timeline for my illness, a 2-week quarantine proposed would do nothing to help me recover. So I wonder who will teach my classes if our recovery is longer than 2 weeks. Will we have to use our own sick days? Will we lose pay? My 2 children, ages 11 and 13, were asymptomatic in a house of several adults that all tested positive. We have no idea if they were carriers or not, meaning our students may be into asymptomatic carriers as well. Even if they do show symptoms, doctors confirmed that everyone is contagious at least 3 days before symptoms are visible. Entire classes could be exposed without realizing it's happening because this virus does not show typical symptoms. How can we ensure children are not carrying the virus to one another, exposing staff and other families, not to mention the asymptomatic adults that may be in our building? My family was extremely careful with masks and sanitizer, and we barely left the house except for essentials. We weren't going to large gatherings or taking part in high-risk activities, and we still got this virus. We were told it was likely circulating indoors at one of my mother's doctor's checkups, which could not be avoided. With the poor circulation and lack of windows in some classrooms, including my own, I worry if this kind of situation can be avoided in schools. Who will be testing the air quality in each room every day? Is the ventilation shared between rooms? Full attendance at the elementary level means classrooms full of children who don't have the ability to be careful about wearing masks, are constantly wiping their faces, and many cannot even handle their own runny noses. I remind you that I carried hand sanitizer everywhere and wore a mask and still contracted this virus. Older kids have this ability and can control themselves, yet the secondary and high schoolers in our district are allowed a hybrid 2-day-a-week model with limited attendance. Why are the elementary students not on the same model too, at the very least, to ensure more social distancing? What about the fact that we still don't know if COVID stays on surfaces? A mask will not help if children touch a surface, leave, and then touch their face to adjust their mask. No one on the bus will tell them not to touch their faces. The bus driver can't see them over the seats. And a teacher cannot regulate 20-something children at once, either to see if they are all keeping their hands clean and away from their faces at all times. I'm personally worried about going back to work with full attendance and exposing my entire family again. If I had a choice, I would do all virtual, but I do not have a choice. I'm not sure my parents could survive another hospital visit, and I'm not sure that I don't have lasting neurological effects on my own body. I may be the one in the hospital the next time I test positive. I believe full attendance should have been a phase 2 or 3 model for our elementary schools. This virus is far from gone. I want my children to go back every day and have a normal life as much as any other parent, but not at the cost of losing lives. people will only start worrying when their own families are affected, and by then it will be too late, as I've seen from my own experience. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're glad you're recovering. Have a good evening.
I appreciate that.
Jennifer?
Hi, this is Jennifer Brown. I have 2 children who attend the high school, and I have one who has recently graduated from the high school. 2 of my children also started out at Wall Primary School, and I'm very grateful for the work that you do, and just wanted to express my thanks. As I mentioned, I had 2 children who started in Wall Primary School, and one of those children, as I mentioned, has graduated. However, she does live with me and started at Wall Primary because of medical fragility. I will not be sending my children to school. I don't feel that it's safe for me, my children, or the rest of our family. And I'm very much interested in the virtual option. However, I would like to know a little bit more about what is being offered. I would like to see something where live stream classrooms are available, where they are being taught just as they would have been if they were in the classroom. However, they're at home, still learning on the same schedule. The hybrid schedule that's been offered sounds nice, but if they're exposed on Tuesday and not on Wednesday, they're still exposed on Tuesday. So it doesn't seem to me like that's going to work for us, at least. And I would like to have the option to have classes offered that are the same as everyone else, rather than just being given a packet full of work to complete. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You as well.
Mr. Lauber? Mike, are you there? I guess not. We'll try him again. Chris?
Hi there. Thank you. This is Chris Gentile, Gentile. I have a daughter at Central School. And thank you everyone for the chance to speak again. I wanted to first start off by acknowledging, first of all, Dr. Greco and his wife for their medical perspective related to their inquiries about going back 5 full live days. As a medical professional in the medical field, I can attest to reviewing data and facts versus operating from a place of fear and concern. So I appreciated their perspective. I also want to appreciate the teachers who have spoken out about their concerns, because I think it's a very valid one. And to all my Wall parents, the good thing about our opportunity here is to be able to speak and to vote. And many of us, actually almost 500, agree that a 5 full virtual day, 5 full live day is what we wanted. So I've had difficulty during the course of our conversation to understand why the proposed plan of 4 half days for K through 5 has been implemented without any rationale behind the why or the what. I can also appreciate the teacher's perspective around ensuring their safety. And I agree with the rationale, although I don't agree with the perspective. that there is cross exposure when you do half days and then move to aftercare or childcare environments. I do believe that there is a valid argument there as it relates to cross exposure and consistency in the virus exposure. But I don't agree that there should be virtual classes or a virtual hybrid model, even honestly for intermediate and high school. I think you're really doing those folks a disservice. You know, at the end of the day, as a medical professional in this field, this virus isn't going to go away. So Wall parents, I implore you to think about, unless we want to mandate vaccinations for all school-age children, as well as adults in the community, we've got to find a way to build immunity in our school systems. And aside from that, you know, I'm a little disappointed that we haven't heard any specifics about the child care programs. I've outlined in prior Board of Education meetings several pages that outline quality childcare and partnerships with local daycare programs. I've outlined about the steps the districts are going to take for those childcare programs. I've outlined on page 54 of the document that there needs to be a schedule that allows for equality of all families, regardless of socio or economic backgrounds, as well as you know, luxuries in being able to obtain additional child care services. Unfortunately, I've not heard any details to support any of those questions posed 2 weeks ago. As such, I'd like to recommend that the vote be held and postponed until the Board of Education can provide the very critical questions of all participants here today, whether teachers, parents, whether you want to go virtual or not, whether you want them hybrid or full-time. We simply don't have the answers to initiate a vote, and therefore I'd like to respectfully request a vote be postponed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stormy?
Hi, Ralph. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I feel a little badly that, I'm sorry, Beth Tormey. I'm a special ed teacher at Central School. I'm sorry. I feel a little badly that Ms. Rosselli's talk was so garbled. So as a colleague of hers, I would just like to support her and reiterate to the board that there are many teachers at the elementary level that are very, very fearful about going back. Not fearful about going back to work. I can't wait to go back and see my kids, but fearful of the number, especially at Central School. We have, I think, something like 500 children in very, very crowded hallways that we're very concerned about. I teach special ed kindergarten and first grade, and I don't have anywhere near the number of children that, for instance, Ms. Rosselli would have in her classroom. But nevertheless, I'm in a very small room where my furniture is going to have to be dragged out so that I can socially distance 6 kids. So I feel badly that she didn't come out as clearly as she wanted to, but I just wanted to kind of support her that there are many of us that are very, very concerned about the volume of children that are going to be with us every day. I really am very concerned myself. My questions that I wanted to say, Carol Swinkoski from Old Mill, thank you, Carol, pretty much took care of everything I wanted to mention. One of the things that seems to be coming up a lot as a theme, though, is the ventilation in our building. Central School has its issues, obviously, but I actually went through the state guidelines last night when I also couldn't sleep after reading Dr. Handerhan's letter, the road back to recovery, or whatever Governor Murphy calls it. And on page 19, there is a discussion about ventilating schools properly. And I quote, it says, schools must ensure that their indoor facilities have adequate ventilation. Recirculated air must have fresh air component. I don't know if we have that. In my room at Central School, I have a tremendous mold and odor issue because of very moldy carpet on the floor. So I can pretty much attest to the fact that there's no fresh air component coming in there. But it's interesting that ventilation has come up a lot, and that is something that is addressed in the guidelines. And then the other thing I just wanted to ask about the 6-foot distancing. Also in the state guideline, it mentions something about net square footage, and it actually gives a formula. And I'm really just curious, are we faithfully and honestly using that formula to make sure that our kids are safely distanced? Or are we just looking at a classroom in each different elementary school and saying, okay, you know, if we take all the furniture out, we can safely socially distance everyone? There is a formula in that guideline. I was just curious as to if we're going to try to use that model. And really the only other thing I wanted to say, when Ms. Connolly did question the WTEA survey results, this model that's being proposed was not the top winner of the WTEA survey. It was actually the third choice of the teachers that did respond to that survey. So it might be wise to let it be known that this was not the teacher's first choice. And I would just like to say in closing, virtual learning in March, starting in March, really threw us all for a loop. And I think we all really rose to the occasion and did a really, really fantastic job. And one of the reasons why I was able to get through it was because Dr. Gleason was so incredibly, incredibly supportive of us. Her reassuring emails every week or every day. I really, there were days where I didn't know, I was doing 24 hours a week of live lessons with my special ed kids and dropping into bed at midnight every night. And just knowing that we had her support, and it meant a tremendous amount to me. So I know that we're going to have your support again through this, but I would like you to just keep in mind that your elementary staff is very, very concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forman. J.A.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, just your name for the record, please.
Okay, so my name is David Sabanjian.
Could you spell that?
I will. It's S-A-B as in boy, O-N-J-I-A-N. You're welcome. I understand how challenging this is and how nervous I am, so bear with me. I have two girls. One is going to be a sophomore, and one is going to be a freshman. They're both excellent students. They're A students. I have my son who's in Allenwood. He's going to be in the 3rd grade. So I've been listening to all this. It's very interesting how we have healthcare professionals talking about how they want their kids in school, because these kids have to learn. They're going to be left behind. The virtual learning. I was in technology for 25 years. The technology is difficult. You saw how difficult it was on this call to have certain people heard. This is not an easy thing to do. These kids are going to get left behind. They need to learn. The data does not support that they're in grave danger here. Will a few people get sick? Maybe. It's possible, but I don't think it's worth the risk. These kids will get left behind. It's very difficult to do virtual learning. So, that's basically what I'm concerned with, that I want my kids to learn. Who's going to watch these kids when they come home? How come it's okay for kids to go to school for 5 days in the 3rd grade, but yet I have my two daughters, they're only going to do 2 half days? It just doesn't make any sense. It's this virtual learning, like when we were all hit with this in March, it was very difficult. Everybody was scared, right? But there was no learning going on. It was very difficult. They were just given things to do. There was no live classrooms. This is very challenging. But I believe that the kids should go to school. They need to have FaceTime with their teachers. They need to be with their friends. They need to have socialization. This is very important in their developmental process, in becoming adults, going to college and all of that. So, that's my concern. Okay. I appreciate the time. And I would think that you should wait on a vote so we can all get some more information and we could all make better decisions. That's all I have. Thank you for listening. I appreciate all the hard work, by the way, that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Ms. Finian.
Hi, Ralph. How are you?
Good. How are you? Good evening. Just your name for the record, please.
Lindsay Meehan, M as in Mary, E-E-H-A-N as in Nancy. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. I would just wanted to say my daughter, she is going to be in second grade this year. When we got thrown in to the virtual learning last March, I wasn't too impressed with the learning. I didn't have, I wasn't mad at the school or the teachers or anything like that. It was brand new for everybody. Nobody knew what to do. It was just a new thing. This coming school year, I am very concerned about her going back to school 5 days. Like many people have mentioned, the little ones really, they're so handsy. I mean, my daughter, I feel like, is like very aggressive and is always like touching other kids. And I just don't see how social distancing is really going to be possible with all these kids going back 5 days. I had originally heard about, the two days a week model. And I thought that was good because when you think about putting like, say 10 kids in a class versus 20, each one of those kids may have siblings that are in different classes. So the exposure is so much more than really just what's in those class because it's what everybody's bringing home and bringing into their household. I felt that the 2 days a week was good. Being 5 days, I'm planning on doing virtual. I'm just hoping that virtual is more than just logging in and just doing things on like Seesaw or Envisions. Like I just felt like that was all kind of busy work and she wasn't really getting a good learning experience. I know Dr. Handerhan that you had said that and I'm going to say this word wrong, the asynchronous model of learning, I feel like you were saying is not developmental, say appropriate for the younger kids. But I feel like if you just put a camera up in the classroom while the teacher is teaching the rest of the class during the day that is going to go, that the parents are going to send their kids to school the 5 days a week, my daughter could just be sitting in her room on her Chromebook watching and paying attention to what the teacher is doing with the students in the class and getting the same education from in her bedroom than, rather than just going online and filling out busy work, I feel like. But I guess that's really all that I have to say.
Thank you very much, and you did great. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
Hi, how are you? Just your name for the record, please.
This is Mary Connors. I'm Woodchuck Lane. I have 3 children in the Wall School systems, Allenwood Middle School and entering high school. So we will be family A of the major spreaders if outbreak happens in any of the 1 schools. We have some concerns, although we really do appreciate Dr. Gleason. I know you're carrying most of the weight from the past experience virtual since your counterpart has left the community, but thank you very much for leading the Board of Ed and our teachers so well through the unknown, right? So now we're not in the unknown, now we're in the new phase of normal. And I just have some feedback, the way that I have 3 children raised by the same 2 parents, and all 3 are extremely different. My entering high schooler excelled in your virtual world, loved it. Her grades went up. She missed no assignments, where unlike in the person-to-person world, she would skip an assignment or 2 because her social life got in the way. She had none of that excuse. My youngest struggled at first when we had the paper packets, and then Miss Tedeschi and Miss Marini, 3rd grade, Allenwood, they hit home runs with their Google Classroom slide presentations. And my little guy turned into a tech wizard and loved it. Absolutely loved it. In fact, he keeps asking if he could stay home if Miss Tedeschi and Miss Marini will still do that. And I have to explain to him that they won't be his teachers anymore. And then my middle child, which I think everybody has one child that finds the loophole in every scenario. He was in middle school. He figured out how to watch the least amount of video for it to count as being watched and guess at the answers. He figured out how to answer assignments with doing absolutely no work. But then to the credit of each and every single one of his teachers, they knew his personality, they knew what was going on. I got the calls, I got the emails, and I don't know how they did this for all their students that, were figuring this out. They worked with him, and they must have been, just my kid alone must have put overtime in on their scale. So, you multiply that by 70 students, these teachers were working really hard in that model that was, here's your assignment, get it done by Thursday, Friday's your catch-up day. Because of him, I want to see more accountability, virtual live lessons, the camera in the room, ask the question and have the kid hit a button so the teacher knows the child's actually in attendance and actually learning and actually listening. Because you're going to have that student, those secret geniuses, and I'm sure each of you probably has one of your own, and Dr. Gleason, you probably can name 50 students that can find every loophole. Without the cameras in the classroom, and I guess, is it called like point of service response, like hit A on your button or, whatever, a Kahoot, but a live one. How do you know these kids are actually paying attention? And why is it really then the ownership of the teacher to figure out who their secret genius is and put in the overtime to call the parent, call the student? Because these teachers feel accountable for their students. They take ownerships of their students. You have to give them credit that they want each child to learn. So if you give the teacher the tool, it will help the teacher. And then to that point, I think it was brought up several times. One was Mrs. Meehan and the other, I think, was Sorka Gill. Once a child either is exposed or themselves test positive, if you have this in-class structure already, it will be seamless for that child versus, okay, I've been going to the part day model. Now I'm going virtual. Now I'm lost. Now I don't know what I'm doing. Now you're going to have a lag time in that child's education. I think we need to start with assuming some, if not many, or a few are going to wind up going virtual after the part-time model. Let's not have the lag time. Let's set it up for success from the beginning. And then lastly, Atlantis Prep had put up a video of a saline ionized solution. I'm saying this all wrong. Where they installed it in their building, and every time a class leaves a room, so as they move from their music room to their regular room, the teacher ionizes the entire room. And it's a solution that they get from, their own premises, that they're making on premises. I've shared it to the Wall Township Locals page. A couple people said there's no way we could afford to put one in every school. But another father had mentioned, let's talk about this being our new normal. Maybe this is something we're going to need to have moving forward anyway. Let's look into it now. Let's start putting it in the grammar schools, since the grammar schools are going 5 days a week.
Ms. Connor?
Yes.
Your 5 minutes is up.
All right, great. Thank you so much for listening.
If you could, that particular thing you were just talking about, if you could maybe email that over to us,
Yeah.
we could pass it along and they could look at it, since that's something new.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Ms. Kendrick?
Yes, hi, Michelle Kent. I'm a high school art teacher. A couple of things I just wanted to say, a couple of things. One, I do take offense to people who say that there's no learning in digital environment. My kids worked. I worked twice as hard as I would when I was in school. And I think that at sometimes we're still comparing apples to oranges. When we went out of school, we kind of like, it was kind of like grab all you can, you run and get out of the building. And everybody was afraid, and there were things going on, and the death toll every day was in the hundreds. We're going back to something different, and we have to go back into this digital forum differently. And I only say that as the parts of the digital, because I do understand the live component. And I have no problem with an AB schedule at the high school, but to say that the days that these kids are working synchronous is nothing's happening. I don't agree with that. My biggest question is the vote for what's going on today, tonight. Is this the reason is because we have to have the proposal in to the Department of Education at a certain time? And if you were to vote tonight and you gave them the models that we have proposed, can we, after the fact, change it and say, because if you think about it, the governor changes his mind one day before he tells us one thing. So if we give them a vote and we're saying we're tentatively, this is going to be our proposal. And I think they're just trying to make sure that every school has the digital version in there, the virtual learning in there. Could we revisit it before school and make modifications to our plan, or are we dead set in what we tell the Department of Education? Because I think that the urgency of the DOE might not be something that parents might not be understanding at this time. And my only other concern, a personal concern is, we talk about desks in classrooms. I have 6 tables. So, do we put my 6 tables 6 feet apart? Because I have a large room, but at this point, where do you put 6 tables? And, I understand, do we have the money to make these, do I have to get outfitted now with, 10 small tables? So that's kind of the things that that I just wanted to bring up. And again, if we are held to this vote or not, just for the Department of Education. And I just have to say that, welcome to the district. I know I met Tracy before, and Lisa, yes, I agree wholeheartedly. The things that you were sending out, reassuring people every day, they were very helpful. But again, if we go into this, we have to go into virtual very differently. And in my understanding, if we go back to a full day and teachers have 9 classes a day, I taught that model for over 25 years. So yes, we can do shorter classes in a long period day if we had to. And I also think that if we go to the half of the day, I think it's a nightmare to put kids in a cafeteria. So by not having them eat, plus if we have full days and we have to give a virtual environment, where do we get the time to do that? So I'm thinking that possibly we're teaching the first half and then doing the virtual the second half of the day, which is my understanding of why that schedule would be like that. I could be wrong, but thank you so much for everything you do. And I do want to meet my kids and see my kids in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Yes, Addison.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. Just your name for the record, please.
Oh, I'm Sandy Addison.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
How are you?
Good.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. I teach at West Belmar School and I taught at Central for many years. I also have 3 kids of my own. We live in Toms River. I'm a little shocked and surprised at the 5-day model for elementary. I concerned with arrival of students. Like I just don't see how it's going to be possible to social distance all the students if we're going to have full population, even with some parents opting to do the virtual only. I just don't see how it's possible. And especially student arrival, like how will the students be screened, crowding in the hallways, arriving to classes, if everybody's arriving at the same time. I'm curious if the district looked at what other districts were doing. Like Toms River, we're doing the 2-day. My kids are doing the 2-day in school for 4 hours, and then 1 day all virtual, and then the other half of the population will go the other 2 days. And Brick is doing the same thing as well. I'm just curious if the district has considered what other neighboring districts are doing. Also, I just want to mention too, like my husband at his workplace, they're still doing Zoom meetings. He says normally his meetings are 20 people and they're not doing live. They're just doing them through Zoom still. And these are adults that are able to socially distance and have control and, you know, have good hygiene, and they're still, so I just think that's something you need to consider, that we're talking about children, that it's difficult for them to keep masks on, socially distance, and have proper hygiene. And that's it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. You too.
Hello,
Hi. Just your name for the record, please.
Tony Knopel.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
I have a child entering high school, 2 in the middle school, and 1 in first grade at Central School. My question really is for the intermediate school, and I apologize if it's already been said. Regarding the red and blue days, I know that it would be, say, red Mondays and Thursdays and, say, blue Tuesdays and Fridays. I was just curious as why you wouldn't do it 2 days together, say red Monday, Tuesday, and then the blue Thursday, Friday, with Wednesday being like a deep cleaning day. Not saying that the other days shouldn't be, you know, sanitized and cleaned, but this way each students are in the classroom 2 days in a row as opposed to doing every other. I also would just like to state that I would really appreciate it if you guys did not vote tonight and send out a new survey tomorrow morning, just with all of our options together and a place where, you know, we can comment if we feel like it's necessary. And that's really all.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment on the presentation? Oh, I'm sorry, this one. Tom?
Hi. Yep, my name is Tom Rack. I have an incoming kindergartner, and you know, I moved to the district this year specifically so that my son would be in a great school district, and I'm absolutely gutted at the situation that we find ourselves in. And I understand that everything that you as a group are doing to evaluate what our options are, and I respect that. So thank you for that. I do have some questions and I do have some concerns. One of my concerns is, as a parent, as a father of an incoming kindergartner, I feel a little bit frustrated at the lack of information as a parent that's coming out to me as a father of an incoming kindergartner. I see the first survey that came out was tailored at all of the virtual learning and all of the previous years and all of the adults, all the parents that have students in school right now. I have my own opinions. I have my own, you know, I work in the technology sector, and I have opinions on that. So I understand that you have to focus on the majority of. So I just want to express that a little bit. I want to express my thanks to Mr. Krupa on his opinion as well, because I am leaning that way. From a purely scientific and data perspective, I want to ask the questions of, when we talk about consulting with medical groups that are being discussed, which medical groups are we consulting with, and where is that data being posted and made available to us as parents, so that we can see what data is driving the decisions and what questions and what analysis is being done on that data. When I look at the information, somebody had mentioned earlier that the medical impact of our students and staff is most importantly. That data is extremely important. As I think about it, we don't have an understanding, or do we have an understanding of the long-term impact of this disease on not only our students, but our staff? Looking at the data that is available to me, at least, it seems that there is a very limited amount of data associated with those under 10 years old. The impact on their life, that their organs, their immediate impact medically and long-term impact. So when we're doing an analysis on the short-term and long-term effects of how this affects their education and how this affects their growth and their evolution as a student, through their learning process, and we're balancing that against the potential impacts with unknown data, with the medical impacts, how are we balancing that? I would like nothing more. Like I said, I would like nothing more than my son's first kindergarten day to be just like mine. And I understand that you're constantly being asked to navigate this changing rule set from government, from coming down to you. And I would just ask that you could post with a little bit more transparency or some of that information on how you're doing those evaluations and how you're doing the balancing between, the risk analysis and the gap analysis on what we're looking at. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all the thought and effort. I appreciate all of the time that goes into the administration of this and all of our teachers out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay. Is there anybody else that has not spoken, made a comment on the presentation? If so, raise your hand, please. MM?
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Mason. I live on Vincent Court. I am new to the district. I moved here for 3 reasons: the wonderful education, the community, and the police department in random order. First and foremost, I want to thank you, like everyone else. I've listened to this whole entire presentation, and I think that one thing we need to look at also is, we talked about the medical and the physical components of this, but we need to look at also the social and emotional component of this, especially as the children age into middle school and high school, because the anxiety, the suicide rate, the depression from non-socialization is a component that we need to look at. I am 4 or 5 days, and the last thing I want to say is that I would like to volunteer. You have a lot of questions, a plethora of concerns that are all important. And I would like to volunteer and help you gather up all of the questions and the answers. I would deliver all of you pizzas right now if I could, and I knew your addresses. So it's been a long night, and you have my full support. Again, my name is Jacqueline Mason. I have an incoming 8th grader and an incoming 10th grader. And I'm here to support you. And I will send my email to the superintendent, and I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you. You have a good evening.
Oh, you also. You're very welcome.
Hello, my name is Matt Samra. I'm actually a vascular surgeon. I work at Jersey Shore, and my son is a kindergartner coming in. And as somebody who actually had COVID, our entire family actually had it. We had it back in March. It was horrible, but we all, came through it. I just, from the bottom of my heart, want to say that I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. I thank God that you guys are willing to open up the schools, and I think the plan is a sound one. And I really think that the young kids especially need school, because trying to do work with them at home and trying to progress them, I really thought about leaving my son back, even though I was told, that he's relatively smart, but I really believe that opening up schools and educating them is so important. And I want to thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Is there anybody else that has not spoken on this topic this evening that would like to speak? Going once, going twice. Okay. We will close public comment on the presentation. So just before we move along, I just want to clarify something that, just so everybody realizes, because we do have a lot of people watching, that the Board of Education does not administer the schools. The only thing we are asked to do this evening is approve the framework of a plan that will be the plan that's mandated by the state of New Jersey. So we have talked about this before, that, and some people made reference to this evening, that things constantly change, and there's a possibility that this will not be, things that are submitted will not be what goes forward. It's going to be a working document. Things are going to change because the state is constantly changing. So I just think it's important that everybody knows that, because we are not voting on something that's written in stone. We are voting on something that lays the framework that's required by the state, and then our administration with the committees will be plugging in the information to move the district forward. So with that, I think Russell, Mr. Gartz, you had your hand up. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Anizio. I just would like to thank everybody who endured tonight's meeting and stayed around to make your comments. As many of you spoke about and understood, this challenge is what nobody signed up for, and nobody wants, for sure, in terms of a pandemic, surprising us. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that Dr. Hanrahan and the team, Dr. Gleason, prior to Dr. Hanrahan arriving, Dr. Cram, during his tenure, the moving parts, the changing guidelines, the fact that we have to submit something, in a fashion of time that is extremely stressful. I just want to give them support for their time and effort. It's trying to hit that wiffle ball that's got all kinds of movement on it, and it's impossible to hit. And we're doing our best, and I know many of you said that, but please understand that the moving factors and the moving parts are extremely difficult, and we'll continue to talk about this. But this vote tonight is a framework to be pushed up to the county superintendent that we're required to come up with. We're not required to vote on it, but we're choosing to support our administration in this framework. And we appreciate everybody's time and effort to voice your opinion during a very difficult time.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
Yeah, Ralph, I just want to, when you were speaking before, you were a little garbled, a little chopped up. At least that's the way I took it. So I don't know. I just would like to reiterate kind of what you said, that we're voting tonight on a framework that is just very generalization of what we're looking to do. And I think the public needs to understand that it's a changing thing. We could get new guidance on Thursday, and Dr. Hanrahan would be back to the drawing board, maybe perhaps doing something different. So to some of the questions that were asked tonight about can this be modified? I think the answer that everybody needs to understand is that it probably will be modified at some point. My guess would be that whatever is done tonight will not be the final version that we start on September 1st. I just think there's too many things that have happened in the past that allow us to believe that nothing's going to change. Something's going to change between now and then, that the government's going to come up with new guidelines, renew this, renew that. And we have to be receptive to that. So I think, like I said, what we're doing today is trying to make sure that we're in compliance with the orders to have a plan in by the first of the month. And then at that point, if things on the ground change, then we can look at that and make better decisions. Obviously, the more detailed plans that would answer a lot of the questions that were brought up tonight will be a week later on the 7th. So again, tonight is, I'm not saying a formality, but it's more, let's get a framework out. Let's get it out there, understanding that tonight is not the end. We're not stopping at this. We will continue to evaluate. And if new information comes available, that may change our thinking. And we're certainly willing to move around anything that we've done if it makes sense. And so I think people need to understand it. It's not this is it. don't think we're not going to change, because it's going to be a fluid document for I think for the rest of until September 1st, or even into September. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Sanfilippo.
Okay, sorry, my space bar wasn't working. So just in case you're keeping track at home, it's about 33% for hybrid, 33% for 5 days, 33% for virtual, at least in terms of the things and the comments that we've received. And look, I think part of this thing is that everybody's has a philosophical understanding, and some of those things are grounded in faith and science and beliefs and all sorts of different things. And like I said earlier, we don't have the luxury to go on feelings or emotions. We have to open these schools in a safe facility, and do that in a way that's going to provide the best educational opportunities for our kids. I would wager to say that folks who feel a certain way today are probably going to feel that way next week. So I know there's a couple folks that called for different surveys and different things like that. As a board, I mean, we have to start, putting paddles in the water and moving forward as a board. And that's what I'm saying for us to, make a decision on the framework as we've, kind of pointed that out. Those paddles, and oars have been in the water for many, many months and going, full steam ahead. And unfortunately, sometimes the brakes get put on by outside adjustments and new rules and new guidelines that have been put in place and all of those different things. So certainly everybody, I think, is understandable that it's a very, very difficult process. But I think that Joe kind of hit the nail on the head. And I think that was something that, was in Dr. Handerhan's presentation, is the fact that, hey, what's the quality of education that we can provide today within the framework and the guidelines is going to be different next week, is going to be different the week after that, is going to be different a month after that. And, this plan is for the first 4 weeks, right? So you're talking about, getting into October. I've been sort of, kind of goofing around with people when they ask me questions about, what do you think about this? I've been saying that, we need to get sort of somebody to stick their toe in the pool and find out whether it's, it's warm or cold. And it's hard because guess what? The school districts are going to be, and some of the sporting, teams are going to be some of the first people that, kind of dip their, their toes in the pool. And it's tough. I mean, but if we just kind of all sit around the pool and look at the water, we're never going to know. So again, that's just kind of, my opinion on it. And I think that, the important thing is that, as a board and as administration and, everyone in the school district, I mean, we are, taking all of that into consideration and doing our best to navigate. Thank you, too. I mean, I guess there's 66 attendants, but I counted like 380. Now it just went up to 81 participants or whatever. So there's a lot of interest in this, and I think that bodes well for the future. And I'd like to thank everybody for all of their input. I was writing down questions and feverishly typing and stuff like that. So I look forward to getting some of those answers and getting them posted, so that we can share and communicate that with the public. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanfilippo. So at this time, I will ask for a motion on number 8, except number 8 is not, what's on the agenda is not stated correctly. So what it is recommended approval of the instructional framework for the school reopening plan for the 2021 school year. Could I have a motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Wondrak. Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Nasser. Any discussion on it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say it when I voted, but I just wanted to say that I went back and forth on this pretty hard because my personal feeling was that I was not in favor of the 5-day opening, but I kind of, not that I was swayed, but I think I've come around to understanding that I think we're going to have to do that. I had a nice conversation with Andy last night about this, about, would I send my kid to the school, and if I did not, then it's not right for me to vote yes to send somebody else's kid 5 days. And after a long conversation with my wife and going back and forth, I said, "What? I don't have children at that age anymore. My kids are all older. What would we have done?" And after we talked about it, I said, "Well, I would have probably sent them." And once I realized that, I said, "Okay, if I could send my kids there, then where I would send my kids there, then I think I can feel I can vote to send other other people's children there." So again, it's going to be a tough vote because I know this is personal to every single person here, but in my mind, I mean, I really did weigh it hard, and I respect Andy's position, and I just wanted to get that out. I could have said it when my name was called on the vote, but I wanted to at least get that out before we actually voted tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Nazar.
Yeah, and I respect Mr. Krupa's point of view. It's tough because we've all been sitting through these meetings for the past few weeks, and we're talking about it now as like a snapshot, and there's things before and things after that add context to a lot of these decisions, and I know a lot of that is going to come out when the final plan is put together and sent out to the community. So, I honestly, I mean, my first choice is to keep the kids out, but within the guidelines of this, what we're talking about now, we have to come up with a solution to get the kids back into school. So within this model, I can understand all the discussion. I can understand all the comments. But we got to come to a decision to keep pushing forward with. That's it. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Did anybody else have anything? No?
Yes.
Mr. Wondrak.
I don't think we've emphasized enough that this is a concept that's got to get out to the various groups of people that are set up and waiting for it. This is not a final vote on anything. This is just to get the information out there. And thank God that we got the kind of response that we did, and we have a good feel for this, the sensitivity of the parents and the dedication of our education professionals that deserve our support. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. The one thing I will say is that I am voting for this framework this evening because, one, as stated before, this is not the final plan. Things can change at any second, and for me, I have a lot of things that weigh on me. One, I have a spouse that works in our district in, the largest population elementary school. So certainly I have many friends in that school that I know. I have friends in every school in town, and I have friends that have kids in the district. So all that comes into play when I think about, is it safe? Because I can tell you on a regular school year, when my wife comes home with pink eye, guess who gets pink eye? I fully understand that. We also understand too the value of masks. Been an EMT for a number of years, my wife. So we understand what masks do and how they prevent the transmission of things and the safety involved in that. So, right now we have a plan. The state says we have to submit something, and certainly on the outside, I think it looks like a good plan. I fully believe things might change. Hopefully, I pray to God that things change for the better. But if they don't, we have the flexibility to retreat and scale things back again. So I certainly think that's very important. I think everybody needs to understand that again, this isn't written in stone, and at any second we can pull back and make sure we are moving in the right direction. Because if things don't look like we're moving in the right direction, I certainly will speak up, and my voice will be loud and clear when it comes to that. So with that, if there's nobody else, Mr. Smythe, roll call, please.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Krupa,
I'm gonna have to say no. I support you guys, but I can't.
Ms. Mangan,
Yes.
Mr. Nasser,
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo,
Yes.
Ms. Stites,
Yes.
Ms. Wondrak,
Yes.
Mr. Guards,
Yes.
Mr. Adenizio.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will now open up for public comment, which is for any school district topic, and it's 5 minutes, and I have one here. Alex, I have to,
Hello,
Alex?
can you hear me?
Yes, just your name for the record, please.
My first and last, or
Yes, please.
my first name's Alex Stone, last name.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring to your attention, I really have a huge appreciation for what all the teachers have done throughout all this. I know it's not easy on anybody. My wife is a teacher in Wall District Elementary, and what I've been able to witness throughout the virtual teaching from the beginning until they finish the school year out was just absolutely amazing. I'm a conductor myself for New Jersey Transit, and I am on trains back and forth, to New York 4 times a day, 5 times a week, all throughout this. And I've been, no stranger to being, in environments where I did not want to be, throughout all this, and possibly potentially bringing the virus, in my front door, and doing everything I could to be safe in doing so. And it's just, I think, like you said, that, it is a very fluid situation that, things could change. With that respect, I think that, you guys may be jumping the gun to even set some sort of standard to be wanting to go back to school, in full capacity without, the virtual teaching aspect, just due to the sheer fact of, as I said, me being a conductor, I see parents with their children on the train all the time. And, even the adults, we require, from Executive Order 125 by Governor Murphy, that everybody requires the face mask and social distancing and things of that. But I can't get adults to, keep their face masks on and practice social distancing. And you're requiring this of, first, second, third, fourth, fifth graders. And, we've all been there. And like you said earlier, your wife gets pink eye and comes home and you get it. I've gotten sick from my wife coming home as well. And until we really hammer down exactly what, is the root cause of this virus, who's a carrier, who shows symptoms, who does not, it's really a little too late to be, jumping in the pool, so to speak. I think at this stage of the game, the big toe should be dipped in first. And in doing so, you're seeing surrounding districts doing, 2 on, 2 off. And I think that it would be beneficial, to follow suit, because one doesn't know what happens tomorrow and a month from now and 1 year from now. And until we do, I think it's what we do tomorrow that sets the standard and sets the stage for what can happen a year from now. And, we talk about it all the time on the trains, my coworkers and I, going back to, the beginning of the year, if we maybe have handled things differently as a country and closed our international, flights and things of that nature, maybe we could have got a handle on this virus before it exploded out of control. And this is almost kind of the same scenario. It's very similar in a sense, because we know what we're up against right now. We know, at least some things we could do to mitigate the possibilities of contracting and spreading the disease further. So It really is, I'm 100% with the kids going back to school, but I don't know if it should happen, in the capacity that you're setting forward as quick as you guys are wishing to do so. Everybody needs to get back to some stage of normal, but it's kind of an ease-in process. Like I said, I'm no stranger to it. They lifted the 50%, capacity on all of our trains, and I'm seeing it every day. People are piling in and being shoulder to shoulder, and you don't know who has it, who had it in the past. And there's some people, if not a lot of people, who haven't even been tested. And that could be the children coming back to school. That could be teachers coming back to school, janitors, principals, secretaries. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of variables throughout all this that I think, really needs to be considered when this decision, is made. And again, I know nothing's permanent, but it definitely is something that's scary. And my wife currently is pregnant, and that scares us with her, immune system being half capacity, and really having no choice. I mean, she has a job and she loves her job. And we used to joke all the time that, I would take her job in a heartbeat because I love being around kids, and oh, you get to hang out with kids all day, your job's not that tough. And now seeing what she's done throughout this virtual teaching, I've been sadly mistaken all the times that I've joked with her. Teachers do not get paid enough. They do not earn enough. And what I've seen her do with the children that she, instructs on a day-to-day basis, just through a computer screen, they lift their hearts up and their hopes and inspire children to read and want to strive to become better students and better people. And that can all be done through a computer screen just as much as it could be done in the classroom.
Alex, thank you. Your 5 minutes is up.
Thank you so much, guys.
Good evening. Ms. Cross?
Microphone. Where's the microphone?
Ms. Cross?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't see the microphone. Okay, I've got a question. I'm not sure how you could approve this tonight because it doesn't seem you can fit the elementary students 5 days a week into the buildings. So how do you vote on something without telling us that you can fit the students? So I think I went over this last week. Central School's at 90% capacity, okay? If the average class is 22 students and 18% just told you that they're gonna do virtual, that gets you down to 18. You're not gonna have your 6 feet of spacing. So how are you voting on something without the actual backup? I think it's going to look worse for you when Lester Richens says, oh, okay, let me see the sheet with the classrooms and the diagram, because you can't do it. And the teacher said they wanted full day every other day. So why would you go against what the teachers asked for? Because I think they know better what can fit. Where did you come up with this? It just doesn't make any sense. Now, intermediate, I really can't do the numbers, but I did the numbers for intermediate. Intermediate is at 76% capacity. Now, I can't do it because I don't know how many kids are in each classes because they have all the extras, but I can tell you it's not going to work for Central. You'd have to redistrict and move some kids over to West Belmar. I said this last week because you're at 64% capacity at West Belmar. So you should not have voted on this because it doesn't make any sense. So that's the second time I've said the same thing. Look, we're all busy. We're all trying to help out here. It just gets frustrating when decisions are made that don't make sense. And this does not make sense. And believe me, I appreciate the teachers talking tonight, and you should let people talk. But Mr. Adonisio, when you cut me off mid-sentence, it's not right. When you let other people talk for an extra 2 minutes and people are texting me, okay, they're 1 minute over, they're 2 minutes over. It's not right. I've spent 10 years looking at information. And for you, Ralph, I've been doing this 10 years. you will go down in history as as probably the worst president, without a doubt. You've got to give a lot more information on virtual, or you're going to have people leaving the district, going to the Catholic schools in droves. This is not going to work. Just like that gentleman said that has a daughter freshman and a sophomore. I have a junior. This is not going to work, what you've presented tonight. And who didn't talk? Christine didn't talk. Ken doesn't have kids in the system. He didn't talk after the presentation. Russell Gartz doesn't show his face. He's chair of FNF. It doesn't make any sense. Let's not look to do a profit center to have to now have people pay so their kids are only in a half a day. You need to redo the survey, send it out. People need to take it, say what school their kids are in, what classes their kids are in, if they're doing virtual, buses, AM, PM, you gotta do it all. Brian, 2 months ago, was supposed to go over the savings that he has accomplished. We got nothing. What did he save on gas, electric, heating? Let's not approve any administrator contract or Brian Smythe's contract until school is up and running and it's October. I don't want to hear you shoved in extra health benefits for free to people when you don't even have the school running and you just approved something that doesn't even make any sense. It's so frustrating. And go over tonight, what has Mr. Smythe bought? What has he bought? I don't understand. You haven't said anything. And it's so disturbing that we don't have this report on the Central School trailers. I don't know what's going on, but I CC everybody imaginable that knows anything about what should be happening, and this is not right. And the district will have to be sued if you don't release that report. This is ridiculous. We're paying attorneys.
Thank you, Ms. Cross. Your 5 minutes is up.
Hi, Lindsay Meehan again. Sorry, I thought of something that I wanted to say before and I had just forgotten. The one other thing that I had a question on was if you could just show, like, post on the site where the data comes from that children under 10 really don't spread, because I just feel like since March has come, I haven't even seen like a child under the age of like 12 at the food store or any type of store anywhere. So I feel like, how would we really know that they spread it? They really haven't been out and about at all. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Patty.
Yes, Patty Nowalski.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Ralph. How are you? I just want to say hi, welcome, Dr. Hennerhan. I heard very good things about you. We have a mutual friend named Suzanne Cranwell. She's my cousin. Lisa Gleason, you have done a fantastic job through the past couple months, and I thank you for all your emails. And I thank all of you on the board for being here and doing this. I am a flight attendant. I haven't worked since March because I stopped working for my family because I was flying in March with no masks, nothing, no social distancing, nothing. I was in it. That's when it was all happening. That's when it was bad. And I stayed home for my kids, and I most likely am either going to be laid off or going back to work in October. So I appreciate Wall coming out now with a plan for parents who have a critical date or time with their work schedules to know what's going on with their kids. I want my kids back in school. I voted for 5 full days. My kids go to Old Mill, 3rd grade, and I have a first-time 6th grader going into Wall Intermediate School, which is so nerve-wracking for her. And the fact that she's only going part-time is not fair. I understand the reasoning, but it's just not fair to these kids that this is their brand new school that they've never been, and she's going to be there 2 days a week. I totally understand all the parents' concerns, safety, everything, but there are people working in grocery stores since March with masks, thousands of people in and out. You're in there with your kids, you're in there everywhere. Everyone's eating out to dinner with masks. Your waiter or waitress is waiting on you. The beach, Manasquan Beach is so crowded. We're all everywhere. And now we are like, we don't want to go back to school or we don't want to teach. Teachers are essential. Nurses are essential. The lady at ShopRite and Food Town's essential. The lady that works at Coastal Urgent Care is amazingly essential. The doctors, nurses at Jersey Shore are essential. Teachers are essential. Our kids need to learn. They need normalcy and they need to be back. I emailed Dr. Gleason a couple ideas of a shower curtain between desks. The teachers could have a plexi board in front of them standing there so they can teach without the mask and then put it back on. I am willing to go into Old Mill School and set up my classroom to get my kids back in and help these wonderful teachers. I'm not against the teachers, I'm for the teachers, but I'm also a taxpayer and my kids have to go back to school. And I think the teachers love these kids enough that we can all find a way to get these kids back to school. There are so many working parents that are panicking on what they're going to do with their kids. So before we start panicking about, is my kid going to carry it? Is my kid going to carry it? The kids are all over the place. They're all over each other. They're all over the neighbors. They have the best immune systems. And if we keep them hidden, their immune systems are going to be worse. And when we do go back, then it's going to be even worse. You know, Old Mill will get the flu, they'll get lice, they'll get strep. The letter comes home. I panic. It's in the classroom. It runs rampant. Everybody's got strep. Unfortunately, it's going to be like this until we all get it. This thing's not going to go away and we can't hide. And it's essential for these kids to go back to school. So I appreciate you guys having a plan. It helps me so much. I had to make a decision for Thursday for work, and having some plan is great. I really wish they would be 5 full days, and hopefully we'll get there sooner than later. But I just want to say thank you, all of you, for taking the time tonight. Thank you for volunteering. Thank you for being here. And I'm really happy to be in Wall Township school system. So thank you.
Thank you. You have a good evening.
Thank you, Ralph.
Hi, good evening. Jonathan Venna. I spoke earlier. I live on Church Street. I have 2 daughters in Old Mill. One thing I do realize that I forgot to do is to acknowledge the time you've all taken this evening and the time that you do put in to being members of this board. I'll admit to being a little cantankerous at the comment in the beginning that none of us wanted to be here to 3 a.m. Because frankly, if there was ever a night we needed to be up to 3 a.m. to talk about something, this is it. I'll stay up to 6 a.m. if it keeps going that long. Dr. Gleason, I also wanted to acknowledge you and acknowledge how much better the communication to parents became after you took over last year. I think that is a universal belief in this district of parents, and we appreciate all that you've done and all that you did to keep people communicated with during the onset of the pandemic. I said most of what I had to say earlier, but one thing that really did trouble me with your vote is the overemphasis on the fact that this is, quote, just a framework. Anytime you're making a big decision, the initial comments you make and the initial thoughts you put to paper and commemorate and make official, they carry. So you did not make an arbitrary vote tonight that's not going to have a real effect on things. You met a requirement for the state. Let's make that clear. You had to do it and you did it. There is no just, this is a framework. There is no just, this is an example. What this is now is the official representation of what stands for, or it's an official representation standing for what the community supposedly believes. Like the woman who spoke earlier, I too have done the geometry, and I know that my daughter's classroom would need to be 4,200 square feet, and I know it's certainly not. And I also know, as I said, that when you memorialize something like this with a vote and with pen to paper, you're making an official statement on which the future will be determined. So I would urge the board and I would urge the community to recognize that tonight's vote was not simply symbolic. It was the beginning of a process that's going to stand for itself for some time to come. Thank you again for your time and your consideration. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Hello?
Lisa?
Hi, yes. Lisa Rotilli, Crabapple Drive. I think
I'm
it's
sorry,
more
could you just say your last name again or spell it?
Rotilli, Rotili.
Thank you.
I think now more than ever, it's very important to implement a program to set up proof of residency for the incoming school year. We did have a program set up like that. I believe I took documents to the offices at one point. And I think that it should hold true for every September. That's all.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Anybody else that hasn't gone for public comment? Oh.
Hi,
Ms.
this
Connors?
is, yes, this is Mary Connors, Woodchuck Lane. Just to tack on to what I had to say before, I was remiss in not welcoming Dr. Hanrahan to the community. I, as well as my husband, we bought here in Wall for the schools. We were sold on our home without entering the home based on the reputation of Allenwood in primary. So you have a lot to hold up, the reputation of a fabulous school system and word of mouth of how wonderful our neighborhoods are. But in addition to what I had to say, I'm in favor of sending the children back to school with the same fears of all the other parents. For the fact that I do have a child that thrives on positive reinforcement and social cues, the homeschooling for that child wasn't a good model. So you always have to base your model off your weakest link, and my weakest link needs to be in school. Although the grades didn't show it, his personality and his behavior at home did. So to say that there's going to be a good answer for everyone, you're not going to win. You're not, no matter what you do, you're not going to win with the majority or the good portion of the community. But what I'd like to see is the kids going back to school. But now that we've got a vote and you can move forward with your committees and giving them true tasks, this is what I'd like to see. If we go back 5 days versus partial, or let's act as if we are all virtual, because there is a chance that the next wave will come through and we do have to go all virtual. So moving forward, what I'd like to see is a comprehensive report, a day in the life of a student, a teacher, a custodian, a security guard, the bus driver, and administrators. What is everybody's responsibility from the moment they step on a bus to the moment they step back into their home? What are the SOPs you're going to put in place for safety and for the medical and for the cleansing? What does the virtual day look like? What is homeroom time? When do they log in? When do they log out? How much time between classes? How are you going to handle gym? If we're in school and we have gym, are our gyms safe for our children? We don't want their immune systems compromised with faulty gym floors if we have a virus going around. What does the day look like for the child that chooses to stay home while we're home 5 days? And I mean detailed minutes for that child so the parents know if they're going to work what their child's doing. And we can't have a virtual day like we did last year, even though my child loved it, where he had his work at 4:30 the night before, woke up at 7:30 and was done by 9:30 and on YouTube by 9:45. Because there was a lot of arguing, there was a lot of complaining. And then I put my children to work like indentured servants. They did laundry, they did dishes, they cooked dinner, they cleaned up after dinner. So I don't want to be reported as putting my child labor laws, but they were done with work very early and I couldn't have them quarantined at home with nothing to do. And then I do feel bad for the elective subjects. Spanish work, I'll admit, was not getting done. Gym was not looking what you want, the state wants it to look like. How are you going to reinforce those electives? And then the easier things that you take for granted, like classroom resources. My children, I was buying books through the internet because the libraries were closed. They didn't have this classroom libraries or the library in school. So will we have access to any of that stuff? And then clubs and sports. What will clubs and sports look like? Will they be virtual for clubs? Will there be time in that split session? How does that happen? I don't even know because I have, an entering freshman. I don't know how clubs work during lunch. So I'll need to be educated regardless in the new world. So I just want to know what the day of the life would be. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Connors. Is there anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment. Anything else, Dr. Handerhan, Dr. Gleason? No? Okay. All right. This time, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gartz, second by Mr. Krupa. All in favor? All right. Okay.
Aye.
All right. Thank you to everybody that took their time this evening to come in with us. We appreciate it. A lot of good questions. And good night to everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Night.